Chapter 302. Where are they? A moment later, Steward Lu led Lu Feng out and found that the two men and the wolf were gone. His face was full of surprise. A black-clothed man said timidly, "They used the portal to escape." Useless trash. Lu Feng was furious. He went up and slapped the black-clothed man's face. The black-clothed men felt wronged. The two men and the wolf were cunning and had the portal. How could they stop them? This matter is not urgent. As long as they are still in the city, they can't escape. However, they even have the portal, which shows that their identity is not simple. Before dealing with them, I'm afraid we have to investigate their identity. After Steward Lu finished, he looked at Lu Feng and said, "Young Master Lu Feng, the patriarch is very angry. You have to be mentally prepared." Lu Feng's heart sank. His hatred for Qin Fei Yang and the others grew stronger. Steward Lu waved his hand and left with Lu Feng and the group of black-clothed men. As soon as they left, the street in front of the treasure pavilion was noisy. Not only did they kick Lu Feng's little bird, but they also peeped at the myths of the Lu family bathing. Why don't they go to heaven? Do you know their names? I don't know. I don't know either. I've never seen them before. This is interesting. They look young, but their strength is ridiculously strong. There should be someone behind them. In front of the patriarch's mansion. Swoosh. Two men and a wolf appeared out of thin air. The four guards at the door were shocked. When they saw that it was Qin Fei Yang and the others, they were relieved. But then, they felt that it was inconceivable. They were teleported here. As expected of the Mrs. Friend, rich and overbearing. Qin Fei Yang smiled at the four guards, then lowered his head to look at Wolf King. He was about to scold him. However, at this time, the image crystal was abnormal. Qin Fei Yang took it out. Battle chi surged, and a peerless beauty quickly condensed. It was Run Wushuang. But at this moment, her face was full of anger. She looked at Qin Fei Yang and said, "What are you doing? Didn't I tell you to go to the temple? Look at the situation now." Qin Fei Yang smiled and said, "Sister, don't be angry. There was a small accident. I will go to the Holy Palace immediately." Sis. The four guards looked at each other, their eyes filled with shock. They thought that the two of them and the wolf could only be friends with Miss Wushuang. But who would have thought that their relationship would be so good? Immediately, there was a hint of respect in their eyes. "Then go quickly. By the way, tell the four guards not to reveal our relationship. One last thing, don't use my grandfather's name to swindle others. Especially Fatso and the white-eyed wolf. Tell them to behave. If my grandfather finds out, the consequences will be dire," Ren Wushuang said. "I understand." Qin Fei Yang nodded. "How worrisome." Ren Wushuang glared at him snappily, and the shadow quickly dissipated. Qin Fei Yang put away the image crystal, stared at Wolf King angrily, and said, "Did you hear that? Don't act recklessly again." The Wolf King smiled awkwardly. Qin Fei Yang rolled his eyes at it, and raised his head to look at the four guards. "Little brother, don't worry, we will keep our mouths shut. Yes, please take care of us in the future." Without waiting for Qin Fei Yang to speak, the four of them smiled and flattered him. "Thank you, big brothers." Qin Fei Yang cupped his hands and asked, "May I ask how to get to the Holy Palace?" "Turn around and walk straight ahead. Soon you will see a crossroads. Turn left. Walk for a few thousand meters, and then turn right. Then walk straight for a while, and you will see the Holy Palace," one of the guards said. "Thank you." Qin Fei Yang cupped his hands and thanked him, and then left quickly with Lu Hong and Wolf King. "It seems that your cheap sister still doesn't know what we did in the East City." After leaving the mansion, Lu Hong looked at Qin Fei Yang and smiled. Qin Fei Yang said, "The two cities are too far away, the news won't reach here so quickly. But when Ren Wushuang knows, he will definitely scold him." He looked down at Wolf King and frowned. "Why did you go to the Lu family last night?" "I just wanted to see how powerful the Lu family is. Wait, I finally sneaked into the Lu family, and then I bumped into Lu Tingting taking a bath. If I didn't escape quickly, I would have fallen into her hands. Damn it, I'm so unlucky," Wolf King said angrily. "Impressive, you can escape from the Lu family." Lu Hong gave him a thumbs up. Are you kidding me? I'm the peerless wolf god. How can those idiots catch me? Wolf King said proudly again. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at his arrogant look. Peerless wolf god? This guy kept mentioning these words. Could it be that there was really such a thing? Soon, a stone staircase entered Qin Feiyang's sight. The stone staircase was very wide, about 5 to 6 meters tall, and also very tall. Qin Feiyang looked at it, and estimated that there were at least 1,000 steps. There were hundreds of people on the stone staircase. The youngest was about 14 or 15 years old, and the oldest was about 30 years old. They were walking towards the top step by step, and seemed to be struggling. And at the top, there was a stone tablet that was more than 10 meters tall. On the stone tablet, there were 2 large golden words engraved on it. Sacred Palace. Like iron hooks and silver strokes, it was vigorous and powerful, and emitted a shocking aura. Lu Hong looked at the stone tablet, then looked at the stone staircase and said doubtfully, "Is this stone staircase the same as the one in the Pill Palace? And is a test for everyone?" Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Let's go and ask." Below the stone staircase, there were 2 groups of people gathered. They were all very young, and different from the others. Their aura was far superior to those on the stone staircase. They were also wearing the same clothes. Only the color was different. The group on the left was wearing white long clothes. The group on the right was wearing black long clothes. But there was a small sword embroidered on their chest. The small sword was the symbol of the sacred palace. In other words, these 2 groups of people were disciples of the sacred palace. Someone else is here. There's another wolf? When 2 people and a wolf walked over, the 2 groups of people also noticed them, and their expressions were a little surprised. When they reached the bottom of the stone staircase, Qin Feiyang glanced at the 2 groups of people. He was surprised to find that there was a table in the middle of the 2 groups of people. There was a pile of gold coins on the table. What's the meaning of this? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. At this time, Lu Hong asked, "Excuse me, what is the meaning of this stone staircase?" Not only is she beautiful, but her voice is also nice. The eyes of a young man in white lit up, and he smiled and said, "Beautiful lady, is this your first time in the sacred palace?" Lu Hong nodded. "Then I'll have to introduce him to you. This stone staircase has a total of 1,000 steps. On the stone staircase there is a pressure, and the higher you go, the stronger the pressure. Only those who reach the top are considered to have successfully completed the test." The young man in white came in front of Lu Hong, and said with a smile, with a hint of flattery, "It's that simple?" Lu Hong was surprised. Simple? The 2 groups of people were stunned, and suddenly burst into laughter. "Beautiful lady, don't look at it on the surface, it's actually not simple at all. Do you see the hundreds of people up there? At most, only a dozen people can reach the top. Even if they reach the top, they may not be able to enter the sacred palace. Because this stone staircase is only the first test, the real test is still to come. I can tell you very responsibly that in the end, there will not be more than 3 people who can become disciples of the sacred palace." The young man in white laughed. "Stop talking nonsense, quickly place your bets. I bet that they can last for at most an hour on the stone staircase, 50 gold coins. Then I bet that they can last for less than an hour, 30 gold coins. You guys are too boring, betting for such a long time. I bet that they can't last for more than 100 breaths, 100 gold coins." The 2 groups of people took out their gold coins, and chattered noisily. "So it's gambling here." Qin Feiyang suddenly understood. "Do you guys want to bet too? As long as you can reach the top within 100 breaths, the gold coins on the 2 gambling tables will be yours." The 2 groups of people began to instigate. Lu Hong glanced at the 2 gambling tables, and shook her head. Too little, not interested. In fact, it was not little. The 2 gambling tables added together should be tens of thousands of gold coins. But in the eyes of Qin Feiyang and the others, tens of thousands of gold coins were not even pocket money. This is little? The 2 groups of people were stunned. Could it be that these 2 people and 1 wolf were rich people? "Are you looking down on us? I'll bet all my gold coins." A young man in black took out a qiankuan bag, and slammed it on the table. "I'll bet all my gold coins too." "Me too." The two groups of people took out their qiankuan bags and threw them on the table, looking at Qin Feiyang and the others provocatively. Lu Hong walked up and looked at them one by one, then turned to Qin Feiyang and smiled. There's only a little more than 5 million in total. Qin Feiyang said. Then let's bet. I don't have any pocket money in my pocket anyway, it's a waste not to take it. What a big tone. Kid, don't be arrogant, you'll cry later. The two groups of people were indignant. Lu Hong waved her hand, and a large pile of gold coins appeared, piling up on the ground like a small mountain. Damn, so many. Could she be the legendary Miss Perfect? The two groups of people were stunned. When they looked at Lu Hong again, their eyes were different. Lu Hong said with a smile. I don't know how many there are here, but it's definitely not less than yours. After saying that, she turned around and walked to Qin Feiyang's side. At that moment, the eyes of those people changed again. They seemed to regard Qin Feiyang as a rival in love. Hey little Hongzi, maybe one of them is your future Mr. Right. Wolf King said with a sly smile. Just them? Lu Hong shook her head with a trace of cold arrogance. Let's go. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly, and took the lead to step on the stairs. Sure enough, there was a pressure shrouding them, but it could be completely ignored. This kind of pressure for a brother who has opened the door of potential is simply child's play. Wolf King disdained it, took a step forward, and ran toward the top. Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong looked at each other and smiled, and quickly chased after Wolf King. Damn, what's going on? They actually ran? The two groups of people below were dumbfounded on the spot. Since the establishment of the Holy Temple, such a situation had never happened. The hundreds of people who were trying their best to climb up were also dumbfounded. Wasn't this too abnormal? Could it be that they couldn't feel the pressure? 10 breaths had just passed. 2 people and 1 wolf reached the top, and the whole process was extremely easy without the slightest pause. Abnormal. Chapter 303. Wolf King said disdainfully. She came up without any effort. I thought it would be difficult. Fortunately, this sentence was said through telepathy. Only Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong heard it. Otherwise, the hundreds of people who were trying their best to climb would vomit blood. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Go down and collect the gold coins. Lu Hong nodded, turned into a stream of light, and quickly landed at the bottom of the stone stairs. After collecting the gold coins on the ground, she collected the gold coins on the 2 gambling tables one by one. Seeing Lu Hong turn around and walk up, the white-clothed young man hurriedly said, Miss, wait. What's the matter? Lu Hong furrowed her brows. The white-clothed young man bowed and smiled like a gentleman. May I ask how I should address you? Boring. Lu Hong said indifferently. Then she walked towards the peak without looking back. Zheng Chuan, she doesn't like you at all. Look at the way she looks at you. It's like she's treating you like a fly. Have you heard of a saying, a toad wants to eat swan meat? Dream on. The others couldn't help but make fun of the white-clothed young man. Let me tell you, I'm really going to eat this swan. Zheng Chuan sneered. Lu Hong reached the top and stood next to Qin Feiyang, frowning. These people are really annoying. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Isn't it good that someone likes you? That depends on who it is. Lu Hong smiled disdainfully. Qin Feiyang asked curiously, then tell me who likes you and won't refuse. This? Lu Hong hesitated and shook her head. This is personal information. I can't tell you. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. He looked forward. In front of him was a square. It was hundreds of feet wide, but there was no one. It seemed a little calm. Opposite the square, there was a huge palace. It was dark all over and looked like it had been there for a long time. On the gate, there were 4 words. Reception Hall. Behind the reception hall stood countless tall and ancient palaces. They were scattered like stars in the sky, grand and magnificent. Qin Feiyang said, Let's go. 2 people and 1 wolf strode into the reception hall. In such a large hall, there were only 2 people. One of them was dressed in white, while the other was dressed in black. Both of them were quite old. However, his face was glowing and full of energy. Furthermore, their facial features were very similar, giving off the feeling that they were a pair of brothers. Someone's finally here. Come here quickly. When the two old men saw Qin Feiyang and the others, they immediately stopped what they were doing and waved at them. Two people and one wolf walked over. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and said, "Greetings, seniors." The old man in black sized them up and said with a smile, "Are you guys together?" "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded. "All right, you guys can enter the next stage together. Do you see those two doors?" The black-clothed old man pointed to a spot to the side. The two people and one wolf looked over. Two pitch-black stone doors came into sight. The two stone doors were more than 10 meters away from each other. The black-clothed old man said, "Now you guys can enter from the stone door on the right. As long as you can walk out from the stone door on the left within 2 hours, you will pass the second stage." 2 hours? The two people and one wolf looked at each other. With a belly full of suspicion, they walked towards the stone door on the right. What kind of test required 2 hours? Lu Hong whispered, "Be careful, there might be something terrifying inside." Qin Feiyang nodded. He came to the stone door and pushed it hard. Accompanied by a rumbling sound, the stone door slowly opened. It turned out to be a passage that was more than 10 meters long. However, to their astonishment, there was nothing in the tunnel. There was nothing at all. The more it was like this, the more they didn't dare to be careless. The two people and one wolf entered the passage one after another. The white-clothed old man waved his hand, and with a bang, the stone door closed. In the passage it was extremely dark. There was only a fist-sized moonstone that emitted a faint light. What's the meaning of this? Wolf King looked ahead suspiciously. At the end of the passage, there was also a stone door. That was the exit. Lu Hong said suspiciously, "Isn't it easy to walk through a passage that is more than 10 meters long? Why do we need 2 hours? Don't be long-winded. Let's go." Wolf King disdained and walked towards the opposite side. Whoosh! But just as he took a step, sharp arrows suddenly shot out from the walls on both sides. They were densely packed and pierced to the bone. Damn murder? Wolf King was shocked and hurriedly retreated. Lu Hong shook her head and said, "It's not murder. Although there are a lot of arrows, their speed is not fast." She was confident that she could easily dodge them. Qin Feiyang glanced at the walls on both sides and said in realization, "I know, this passage tests speed." Lu Hong said, "You mean if we dodge the arrows and reach the other side we will pass?" Qin Feiyang nodded. Lu Hong said in surprise, "Isn't that too easy?" "Easy." Qin Feiyang stared blankly for a moment before he forced a smile and said, "Have you forgotten about our cultivation?" "Cultivation?" Lu Hong thought carefully and could not help but shake her head and laugh. The test here was only for martial masters and martial grandmasters. But they were battle kings now, so such a test was naturally useless. "Let's go." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and his feet kept flashing, dodging the rain of arrows shooting from both sides. In less than 3 breaths, they reached the other side. Lu Hong and Wolf King followed closely behind. "It's so easy again. How boring." The Wolf King shook its head, looking like it was lonely at the top, which made Qin Feiyang and the other man roll their eyes. Qin Feiyang reached out and pushed the door. Lu Hong suddenly said, "Wait, the mansion master said that we should keep a low profile. If we go out like this, we will definitely cause a commotion. I like to keep a high profile." Wolf King waved his paw and directly shook the stone door open. He walked out proudly. This. What do you think he's saying? He won't change even if he dies." Lu Hong said angrily. "Forget it. We were already very high profile at the stone stairs just now. It's too late to keep a low profile now." Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. The corners of Lu Hong's mouth could not help but purse into a bitter smile. They're out so soon." Seeing the two people and the wolf appear, the two old men stood up in unison. Their old faces were full of disbelief. Wolf King said proudly, "What's so bad about that test? Let's start the next one." The two old men looked at each other with a trace of doubt in their eyes. Was there a problem with the mechanism inside? "I'll go take a look." The old man in black strode into the passage, and was stunned when he saw the arrows all over the ground. There was no problem. How strange. How could something like this happen? After the old man in black returned, He looked at the two people and the wolf and said, "Report your names, age, and cultivation." Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and said, "Disciple Qin Feiyang, 17 years old, 2-star battle king." Lu Hong said, "Disciple Lu Hong, 18 years old, 1-star battle king." What? The two old men's eyes widened as they looked at the two people in surprise. A 17-year-old 2-star battle king? An 18-year-old 1-star battle king? Wasn't this a bit too ridiculous? The white-robed old man's eyes lit up as he urged, "Release your auras." Qin Feiyang and the wolf looked at each other with a trace of helplessness in their eyes. Being too talented was also a troublesome thing. Two auras appeared at the same time. That's right. They've really stepped into the Battle King realm. The two old men were shocked. No wonder they could pass the test so quickly. To them, these tests were just child's play. Wolf King glanced at Qin Feiyang and the wolf, then looked at the two old men and said with dissatisfaction, Hey, do you think I don't exist?" The two old men were startled. The old man in black seemed to be very happy and said with a smile, "Then tell us." "I've lived for more than 10 years, and now I'm barely a 3-star battle king." Wolf King looked at them lazily and said, but his expression was one of exultation and pride. 3-star battle king. The two old men looked at each other. They couldn't tell that this wolf cub was also a monster. Haha. I didn't expect that 3 good seedlings would come this time. The old man in black laughed out loud. "You're so proud." The old man in white rolled his eyes and looked a bit unhappy. Qin Feiyang looked at the two of them suspiciously. Why was there such a big difference in their reactions? He didn't think too much about it and cupped his hands. "Seniors, what's the next test?" Was there a need to take the test? The two old men smiled bitterly. "There's no need to take the test. From now on, you are disciples of the temple," the old man in black said and took out 2 tokens. His fingertips moved, and a name quickly appeared on the back of the 2 tokens. They were the names of Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong. The old man in black handed the tokens to the two of them and said with a smile, "This is your identity token, you must not lose it." "Thank you, senior." Qin Feiyang and the wolf cupped their hands and thanked him. "Don't call me senior. I'm Zhou Shi, and the one beside me is Zhou Dong. We're brothers, and we're both deacon elders of the temple." The old man in black smiled. "We're indeed brothers," Qin Feiyang muttered. "Greetings, elders." The two of them cupped their hands and bowed again. Zhou Shi was full of smiles. The white-haired old man, Zhou Dong, had a sad look on his face. The more Qin Feiyang looked, the more puzzled he became. At this time, Wolf King suddenly said, "Wait, old man, where's my identity token?" "What does a beast like you need an identity token for?" Zhou Shi frowned. Wolf King said angrily, "Can't a beast take it? Are you looking down on beasts?" Zhou Shi was stunned. Why was this wolf cub so difficult to deal with? But the temple didn't seem to have a precedent of accepting a beast as a disciple. Wolf King said, "I don't care if you don't give me the identity token, I'll stay here and not leave." Threatening him? Zhou Shi looked at Qin Feiyang and the other man and asked, "Is this your battle pet?" Wolf King suddenly said with contempt, "Old man, what's wrong with your eyes? Can't you see that I'm their big brother?" Qin Feiyang's face darkened. Zhou Shi's forehead also had a row of black lines, and he said angrily, "If it weren't for your talent, this old man would definitely beat you up." As he spoke, he took out a blank token and said, "What's your name?" "Lord Wolf." Wolf King blurted out without hesitation. Zhou Shi's face twitched, and he directly threw the token to Wolf King, saying, "Take it and carve your name." Wolf King caught the token, and said discontentedly, "What's with your attitude? Brother Xiaoxin will complain to you." Complain? Was this wolf cub itching for a beating? Zhou Shi's veins were bulging and he shouted, "Get lost immediately." Chapter 304. Wolf King glared at him and shouted, "Your attitude is really bad. I will complain about you later." Zhou Shi was furious. He rolled up his sleeves and shouted, "Do you believe that I will loosen your skin today?" Che. Wolf King glanced at him with disdain and ran out of the hall. "What a bastard!" Zhou Shi cursed. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "You two better keep an eye on it. Don't let it mess around in the sacred palace. Disciple understands. Qin Feiyang nodded. He was a little annoyed. This ruffian wolf, no matter where it went, it wouldn't stop. It seemed that it would only behave if it was locked up in the castle. Zhou looked at the white-clothed old man and laughed. Old brother, you stay here and watch. I will bring them to the cultivation room. Get lost. Zhou Dong waved his hand impatiently. Cultivation room? Qin Feiyang frowned and said hurriedly. Elder Zhou, can you arrange an alchemy room for us? Alchemy room? Zhou was stunned. Zhou Dong, who was sitting on the chair, suddenly stood up and looked at Qin Feiyang and Zhou in surprise. What's wrong? Qin Feiyang and Zhou didn't understand. You two are alchemists? The two old men asked at the same time. Qin Feiyang and Zhou nodded. Ha. Zhou Dong, who was in a bad mood, immediately laughed. Zhou, who was proud of himself, had a bitter expression. Qin Feiyang and Zhou looked at them with a weird expression. Cough cough. Zhou Dong also realized that he had lost his composure. He stopped laughing and said, Are you two confused about why Zhou and I reacted so strangely? The two nodded. It wasn't just strange. It was very strange. All right, I will explain it to you. The sacred palace is divided into two camps. One is the pill hall, the other is the martial arts hall. I believe I don't need to explain the nature of the pill hall and the martial arts hall. Although Zhou and I are deacon elders, I belong to the pill hall while Zhou belongs to the martial arts hall. Zhou Dong said with a smile. I see. Qin Feiyang mumbled and asked. Then do the clothes you're wearing have any special meaning? You even noticed this. You're really meticulous. That's right. In our temple, those who wear black are martial artists, and those who wear white are alchemists. Zhou Dong said. Qin Feiyang suddenly understood. At this moment, Zhou Dong coldly snorted and said, Zhou Dong, don't be too complacent. Although they are alchemists, their martial talent is even more amazing. When Zhou Dong heard this, he immediately frowned. That's right. Both of them had reached the Battle King realm at such a young age. Such talents were extremely rare. Most likely his talent in alchemy would be hard to compare. No. We can't make a conclusion so early. Let's test their mental strength first. Zhou Dong mumbled and took out a palm-sized crystal. He smiled and said, This is a spiritual stone. Let's test your mental strength. Lu Hong said, Elder, there's no need to test it. I only have level 5 mental strength. Level 5? Zhou Dong's face was filled with disappointment. Level 5 mental strength was considered top-notch in the county of Yan. However, in the spiritual state, which was full of talented people, it was not a big deal at all. What you hear may be false, but seeing is believing. Test it again. Zhou Dong was a little unwilling. Lu Hong was a little helpless. She reached out and pressed on the spiritual stone. Buzz. The spiritual stone vibrated 5 times in a row. Lu Hong felt dizzy and hurriedly retracted her arm. Zhou laughed heartily as he turned to look at Zhou Dong and said complacently, You should give up now. Sigh, this is fate. Zhou Dong sighed. But the next moment, he looked at Qin Feiyang expectantly. Don't try anymore. His mental strength is definitely not high. Zhou pursed his lips. It was absolutely impossible for there to be a person who was a genius in both martial arts and alchemy. It's none of your business. Don't talk too much. Zhou Dong glared at him and looked at Qin Feiyang. He smiled and said, Come and test it. Do you really want to test it? Qin Feiyang frowned. Of course. Zhou Dong said without hesitation. He looked quite nervous. All right. Qin Feiyang nodded and reached out to press on the spiritual stone. Buzz. The spiritual stone suddenly vibrated. Once. Twice. Thrice. 4 times. When it vibrated for the 5th time, the two old men stared intently at the spiritual stone. Buzz. When it vibrated for the 6th time, Zhou Dong's old eyes suddenly shone. Next. 7th time. 8th time. 9th time. At this point, Qin Feiyang did not feel dizzy and was full of energy. Do you want to stop? He hesitated. Zhou Dong laughed and said, Good. Level 9 mental strength is considered one of the best in spirit state. What? Level 9 mental strength is only one of the best. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. Sure enough, he continued with the test. Buzz. After a few breaths, the spiritual stone vibrated for the 10th time. How is that possible? Lu Hong's pupils constricted. Didn't Qin Feiyang only have level 9 mental strength? He actually has level 10 mental strength. There are only 3 people in the sanctuary who have this. Zhou Dong exclaimed. 3 people? Qin Feiyang frowned. Countless thoughts flashed across his mind. In the end, he stopped and pretended to be dizzy. Is that it? Zhou Dong was stunned. Qin Feiyang rubbed his head and said apologetically, Elder, I'm really sorry. This disciple only has this bit of talent. No. Zhou Dong quickly waved his hand and said with a smile, Level 10 mental strength is already very rare. Zhou Shi shook his head and said, No, although level 10 mental strength is rare, it's still not as good as his martial arts talent. Zhou Dong said angrily, Then what do you want? Let me tell you, if you dare to snatch him, don't blame me for falling out with you on the spot. Zhou Shi said in disdain. Why are you so agitated? I'm just stating a fact. Do I need you to state it? You're a dog trying to catch a mouse. Zhou Dong snorted coldly. Zhou Shi was furious, but then the corners of his mouth lifted and he said, I don't want to talk nonsense with you. He looked at Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong. Although the final choice is in your hands, I want to remind you that you shouldn't bite off more than you can chew. Don't waste your martial arts talent just to concoct elixirs. If you choose the martial arts hall, I guarantee that you will definitely enjoy the best treatment and focus on grooming. But if you choose the pill hall, to put it bluntly, you will only become someone else's stepping stone. Especially you, Lu Hong. You have level 5 mental strength. You won't be valued at all. Zhou Shi said. It could be said that he was trying his best to persuade him. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, I still choose the pill hall. Lu Hong followed and said, Wherever he goes, I will follow. Zhou Shi's face darkened, and he was furious. Did he say so much for nothing? Haha. Zhou Shi, don't waste your time. They have outstanding talents, but they still choose to concoct elixirs. Do you know what this means? This means that they have full confidence that they won't delay their cultivation. In other words, they don't need the martial arts hall to nurture them. Zhou Dong kept laughing, and there was a hint of mockery in his eyes. Zhou Shi said angrily, Will you die if you don't say anything? Zhou Dong smiled proudly and said, Qin Feiyang, Lu Hong, let's go. I will bring you to the concoction room. Zhou Shi shouted. Wait, where is that wolf? It must enter the martial arts hall, right? Bad old man with a bad attitude. Am I close to you? Why should I go to the martial arts hall? Are you begging me? If you beg me, I will give you face. Wolf King, who was hiding outside, walked in arrogantly and looked at Zhou Shi mockingly. Hearing this, Zhou Shi was so angry that he went crazy. He pounced on the Wolf King and shouted, Wolf Cub, see if this old man doesn't beat you to death today. The situation is tense. Retreat. The Wolf King quivered and fled out of the hall in a flash. Zhou Shi, a forcibly picked melon won't be sweet. You better stop. Zhou Dong looked at Zhou Shi proudly. He then led Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong out of the main hall happily. He waved his hand and swept up the 2 people and the wolf. He rushed into the air and flew towards the back of the reception hall. All the way down, Lu Hong and Wolf King were completely dumbfounded. The sacred palace was too big. It took up almost half of the central city area. There were tall palaces everywhere. There were also mountain ranges in the distance. They were like giant pythons lying on the ground. There were even blue lakes, flowing rivers, and towering ancient trees that even a dozen people couldn't encircle. It was like an independent small world. There was actually such a place in a city. It was too simple and shocking. In the reception hall, Zhou Shi was like an ant on a hot pan. He kept walking around, and his face was full of anxiety. No, we can't let all of them enter the pill hall. But this is their own wish. What should we do? Got it. Go and tell the law enforcing elder and the hall master. Ask them to go to the pill hall and ask for them. With that thought, Zhou turned into a stream of light and flew out of the reception hall. He then flew towards a big hall in the distance. At the same time, Zhou Dong brought 2 people and a wolf and landed in front of a small square. There was a huge ancient castle in front of them. It was as black as ink and emitted an ancient aura. There were 3 big words engraved on top of the castle's gate. Pillfire Palace. There were some young people going in and out from time to time. There were 2 middle-aged men guarding the castle's gate. They were both wearing white clothes and their aura was unfathomable. When the 2 people and a wolf arrived, the disciples in the square immediately stopped and looked around curiously. Are they new disciples? Why is there a wolf here? Could it be that it knows how to refine pills? Everyone was confused. Zhou Dong brought the 2 people and a wolf to the gate. He smiled at the 2 middle-aged men and said, "Old friends, this old man has brought you more people." The 2 middle-aged men glanced at each other. One of them said suspiciously, "You're smiling so happily. Could it be that you have a good seedling?" Of course. Zhou Dong patted Qin Feiyang's shoulder and chuckled. This kid is called Qin Feiyang. He has level 10 mental energy. What? Level 10 mental energy? The 2 middle-aged men opened their eyes wide. The other disciples also looked at Qin Feiyang in disbelief. Greetings to the 2 elders. Greetings to the senior brothers and sisters. I'm new here. Please take care of me in the future. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and said. He also had a sunny smile on his face. He was very approachable and polite. Junior brother Qin, you're too humble. Yeah, we should be the ones taking care of you. The disciples laughed. Chapter 305. What they didn't know was that Qin Feiyang was actually observing them. After all, the first thing to do in a strange place was to distinguish between good and evil. This way he could take precautions in advance. According to his observation, although most people were friendly to him, there were some who had an inexplicable glint in their eyes. There seemed to be hostility hidden in their eyes. Let's go. I'll take you to the alchemy room. After some pleasantries, Zhou Dong led the 2 people and the wolf into the Pillfire Palace. The rest of the disciples also dispersed. Inside a long corridor, Zhou Dong asked, Qin Feiyang, do you know how many alchemy rooms there are in the Pillfire Palace? Qin Feiyang shook his head. Let me tell you. The Pillfire Palace has a total of 10 floors. Apart from the 10th floor, each floor has 1,000 alchemy rooms. That's 9,000 alchemy rooms. Zhou Dong smiled. So many? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Not at all. There are hundreds of millions of people in the capital alone, let alone the entire spiritual state. I'm afraid there are at least 900 million people in total, if not 1 billion. Although there are very few people with alchemy talent, there are at least a few 100,000 people in the populous spiritual state. Zhou Dong said. Qin Feiyang asked, then why are there only 9,000 alchemy rooms? Because there are too many people. We can't cultivate all of them. Therefore, the alchemists who come to the sacred palace and want to enter the Pillfire Palace need at least a level 5 mental strength. Zhou Dong said. Lu Hong was stunned and smiled bitterly. So I'm still at the bottom. When it comes to alchemy, you're definitely at the bottom. But when it comes to martial arts talent, I'm afraid no one in the sacred palace can compare to you. You should be content. Zhou Dong smiled. Lu Hong smiled faintly and asked, then how many alchemy rooms are there on the 10th floor? Zhou Dong said, the 10th level only has 10 pill refinement rooms, but the disciples who can enter the 10th level are all geniuses in the path of alchemy. Qin Feiyang asked, in other words, the higher you go, the better the quality of the elixir fire? Zhou Dong nodded and said, that's right, because the alchemy fire is sealed on the 10th floor. By the way, let me tell you that's a rank 3 alchemy fire. At this moment, they had just arrived at the center of the courtyard of the Pillfire Hall. The atrium was very large, at least a few thousand feet in length. It was surrounded by many alchemy rooms. Qin Feiyang raised his head. His gaze directly passed through the 9 levels and landed on the 10th level. His eyes flashed with a bright light. With a 3rd-grade Pillfire, he might be able to refine even higher-grade pills. Qin Feiyang asked again. What about the pill furnace? Zhou Dong laughed. Temple will not equip disciples with pill furnaces. You have to find them yourselves. Also, Temple has rules. All new disciples, no matter how talented they are, can only be arranged in the lowest level alchemy rooms. If you want a higher level alchemy room, you have to snatch it yourself. Zhou Dong added. How? Fight. Then let's fight our way up to the 10th floor now. Wolf King hooted. Zhou Dong was immediately annoyed and said angrily. This old man will give you a warning. Temple disciples are not allowed to fight in private. Wolf King said disdainfully. Then aren't we all like flowers in a greenhouse? Nice to look at but useless? Zhou Dong's old face twitched. If the other disciples heard this, it would probably cause public outrage. This old man is too lazy to explain it to you. You can slowly understand it yourself. He could see that there was no way to communicate with this ruffian wolf. A moment later, he stopped in between the last two alchemy rooms, looked at Lu Hong and Qin Feiyang, and said with a smile, This is your alchemy room. Remember to go to the resource hall to get your clothes when you have time. The pill formulas and herbs are also in the resource hall. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and said, Thank you for telling me, elder. Then this old man will take his leave first. Work hard and strive to get a seat on the 10th floor as soon as possible. After Zhou Dong finished speaking, he turned and left. After watching him leave, Lu Hong shook her head and said with a smile, It seems that he still thinks you don't know how to refine pills. Isn't that better? Qin Feiyang smiled, turned and pushed open the stone door, and suddenly looked a little stunned. Was there a mistake? This alchemy room was only 2 meters wide and long? Excluding the stone table where the pill furnace was placed, the space for movement was probably only 1 meter. Wasn't it too narrow? With Wolf King's size, there was no way he could get in. Lu Hong also smiled bitterly again and again. In such a small place, 2 people standing in it seemed crowded. Moreover, it was also very messy inside. Bottles and jars were everywhere. Lu Hong smiled helplessly and said, Wait a minute, I'll go in and tidy it up. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and said, No, we'll change to another alchemy room later. White-eyed wolf, you go and find out the news. Yes, you have to be so domineering. This is in line with your identity, little Qinzi. The Wolf King chuckled, turned around and dashed outside. Qin Feiyang also followed into the alchemy room, took out the bronze pill furnace, and placed it above the fire outlet of the stone table. Then, he pressed the button next to him, and a flame suddenly spewed out. Qin Feiyang was surprised. This pill fire was actually light blue? Lu Hong stood at the door and couldn't help but show a strange light in her eyes, but more than that, she was looking forward to it. Phew. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath. Regardless of the color of the pill fire, his spiritual force emerged from the top of his head and rushed towards the pill fire, slowly fusing with it. At the same time, the 10th floor, alchemy room number 2. This alchemy room was very large, more than 100 meters in size. Not only was there an independent alchemy room, but there was also an independent lounge and a cultivation room. Coffee table, chairs, beds, everything was available. Compared to this alchemy room, Qin Feiyang's alchemy room was simply a pile of dog shit. At this moment, in the lounge, there were 3 young men in white sitting, all of whom had a dignified appearance and outstanding temperament. And there was a kind of arrogance between their eyebrows that looked down on everything. And there was a person standing in front of them. This person's face was yellow and thin, and his body was short. He looked at the 3 young men in white with a respectful face. The young man in white sitting in the middle said lightly, Huang-san, tell us, why are you looking for us? Huang-san said respectfully, Senior brothers, there's a new disciple just now. Before he could finish, the young man in white raised his eyebrows and stretched out his hand. Wait, what's so strange about a new disciple? You even called us here. Do you think we're all bored? The other 2 also looked dissatisfied. Huang-san said anxiously, Senior brothers, this new disciple can't be underestimated, because he also has a level 10 spiritual force. What? The 3 of them suddenly stood up, a trace of shock on their faces. The young man in white in the middle asked, Is it true? Huang-san said. Elder Zhou Dong said it himself. I was there at that time and heard it with my own ears. It's definitely not false. What's his name? How old is he? The three of them asked. Huang San said, Qin Feiyang, looking at his appearance, he should be around 17 or 18 years old. Qin Feiyang? Why haven't I heard of him? Logically speaking, a person with a level 10 spiritual force is definitely not an unknown person. The three of them looked at each other and frowned. The young man in white on the left asked, How is he? Huang San said, Very polite but looks a little silly, probably not very bright. At this point, Huang San's eyes turned cold, and he continued, But if he continues to grow, I'm afraid he will threaten your position in the temple. Silly? The three of them looked at each other and smiled, not taking it to heart. The young man in white in the middle took out 10 battle chi pills and threw them on the ground like trash, saying, These pills are your reward, you can go now. If one looked closely, they would be surprised to find that there was a very faint pill pattern on the 10 battle chi pills. Thank you, senior brother Liu. Huang San was overjoyed, and without any self-respect, he knelt on the ground and picked them up. After thanking him, he excitedly ran out of the alchemy room. Lu Ziyuan, this Qin Feiyang, what do you think? After Huang San left, the two people on the left and right looked at the young man in white in the middle. Lu Ziyuan pursed a confident smile and said, Isn't it easy to deal with a person who is not very bright? Wait for me for a while, I will refine a batch of healing pills and bone replenishing pills. Then I will go and meet him. After that, Lu Ziyuan walked towards the alchemy room. Healing pills and bone replenishing pills are such low-level pills. Why are you still refining them? The two people looked at him in confusion. Do you think I want to refine them? This is the Patriarch's order, can I say no? Sai, this person is too outstanding. It is also a kind of trouble. Lu Ziyuan shook his head, entered the alchemy room, and lowered his head to busy himself. Back to Qin Feiyang. The third-grade pill fire was indeed powerful. It took Qin Feiyang 2 hours just to fuse with it. Then, after wasting 10 sets of medicinal ingredients for the heal pill, he was finally able to control the heat and quickly concoct a supreme-grade heal pill. The moment the pill came out of the furnace, a strong medicinal fragrance assaulted his face. Qin Feiyang grabbed it in his hand, ignoring the rolling temperature, and lowered his head to check it. Lu Hong also immediately came over. The healing pill was round and smooth, without a single flaw, and the pill pattern was even more dazzling than before. After a few glances, Qin Feiyang shook his head and said, Although it has improved a little, it is still not enough, the quality of the pill fire here is too poor. Lu Hong suddenly said, No, look, there seems to be an extra pill pattern. And Qin Feiyang stared blankly and looked over. At that moment, his eyes burst with light. Beside that dazzling pill pattern, there was indeed a circle of pill pattern, but it was very blurry and could almost be ignored. Lu Hong asked, Is there a pill with 2 pill patterns in the world? Yes. Not only 2, there are 3, 4. The more pill patterns there are, the better the effect. The best medicinal pill I've seen in the imperial capital has 5 veins. Qin Feiyang was completely immersed in excitement. If he could get the alchemy room on the 10th floor, it was absolutely possible to refine a pill with 2 pill patterns. Da-da. At this moment, steady footsteps could be heard. Someone is coming. Lu Hong was shocked. Qin Feiyang also hurriedly put away the alchemy room and the bronze furnace, walked out of the alchemy room, and looked in the direction of the footsteps. The footsteps came closer and closer. Soon 3 young men in white entered Qin Feiyang's line of sight. Chapter 306. The 3 of them were smiling, but there were daggers hidden in their smiles. Lu Hong whispered, They don't come with good intentions. Qin Feiyang said, Seeing them reminds me of you, Ji Jin and Ling Yan. What's your name? Yes, Qingyi. Lu Hong was slightly stunned and said angrily, Can you not mention the stupid things back then? It's so embarrassing. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but laugh. Qin Feiyang. The 3 of them walked over, glanced at Lu Hong, and then fixed their eyes on Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and said, Yes. May I ask who the 3 of you are? Lu Ziyuan smiled and said, I'm Lu Ziyuan. The two next to me are Xiaohong and Dongcheng. We both have level 10 spiritual power. So it's the three of them. Qin Feiyang muttered to himself and said with a smile, I've heard a lot about you, senior brothers. Please take care of me in the future. Lu Ziyuan and the other two looked at each other and smiled. Huang San was right. This person was indeed stupid. Xiaohong said playfully, It's not a problem to take care of you, but you should at least show some sincerity, right? What sincerity? Qin Feiyang continued to play dumb. Xiaohong said, The three of us are the leaders. In the future, you will listen to us. If that's the case, wouldn't I become your little follower? Qin Feiyang frowned. Dongcheng said with a smile, Many people want to be our follower but don't have the chance. Xiaohong added, So it's your blessing to be our follower. Do you understand? That's true. Let junior brother think about it first. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and pondered, looking very conflicted. The smiles on the three of their faces became brighter. Just his brain and IQ alone were not worthy of compliments. Lu Hong, who was next to them, was silent, but her cheeks were a little red. She was holding it in. She was very amused. Weren't these three people too full of themselves? How dare they boast so shamelessly and ask Qin Feiyang to be their lackey? Where did they find the courage? Have you thought about it? Don't waste our time. Dongqing urged impatiently. This? Qin Feiyang hesitated. Lu Ziyuan shot a disdainful glance at Qin Feiyang and said, Looks like we have to let him see the world. Dongcheng, give him a few medicinal pills to see. All right. Dongcheng smiled playfully. He took out 3 pills from his heaven and earth and threw them to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang grabbed it and looked at it carefully. They were a healing pill, a qi-gathering pill, and a battle qi pill. Lu Hong moved closer to take a look and said in surprise, There's actually a pill vein? Dongcheng said proudly, How is it? Are you shocked? Qin Feiyang smiled foolishly and said, Senior brother Dongcheng, you're really amazing. But this pill vein is too blurry. Is it a semi-finished product? A semi-finished product? Dongcheng raised his eyebrows and looked a little displeased. But when he saw Qin Feiyang's silly look, his displeasure turned into disdain. Although the pill vein is very blurry, it is indeed a supreme-grade pill. You haven't seen the world, so I won't argue with you, Dongcheng said. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. Xiaohong frowned and said, Don't be long-winded. Just say it. Do you want to be our lackey? Xiaohong, don't be so fierce. You'll scare him. Lu Ziyuan patted Xiaohong's shoulder and looked at Qin Feiyang with a smile, saying, Junior brother Qin, as long as you agree, when we're in a good mood, we'll teach you how to refine pills. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Many thanks for senior brother Lu's kindness, but this junior brother is really unworthy. And the smile on Lu Ziyuan's face froze. Giving face but not taking it? Lu Ziyuan said in a low voice, You have to think carefully. If you don't curry favor with us in the temple, you won't be able to move an inch. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, It's fine. I like to be like a snail, crawling slowly. Senior brother Dongcheng, I'll return the pills to you. With a wave of his hand, 3 pills flew towards Dongcheng. Dongcheng's gaze turned cold. He grabbed them in his hand and crushed them directly, saying, You're courting death. Qin Feiyang hurriedly waved his hand and said, No, no, no. I don't have any other meaning. I just don't like being ordered around. Lu Ziyuan said, I'll give you one last chance. This? Qin Feiyang hesitated for a moment, then grinned and said, If 3 senior apprentice brothers can give up a pill refinement room, I'll be your little follower. How about it? And the 3 people exchanged glances, a hint of a sneer creeping onto their faces. Did he not take a look at who he was? To actually still dare to negotiate terms with them. Was he tired of living? Xiaohong smiled coldly and said, Is the 10th level's pill refinement room also something that you have the qualifications to dip your fingers into? Really refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit? Qin Feiyang thought about it and asked naively, Senior brother Xiaohong, what's a forfeit? Have you eaten it before? Tell me, what does it taste like? Lu Hong finally could not hold back and burst out laughing. She did not expect that Qin Feiyang was actually quite talented in playing dumb. These three fellows who thought themselves infallible thought that they were very smart, but in reality, they were being played in circles by others and were completely unaware. Xiao Hong clenched both hands tightly and shouted, "Stinking woman, shut up for me immediately." Lu Hong was stunned and said with a bright smile, "What if I don't shut up?" And Lu Ziyu and three people all looked at Lu Hong, a hint of surprise in their eyes. Clearly, they did not expect that a woman dared to contradict them too. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Three senior brothers, don't get angry. Children don't know anything, please bear with them." Lu Hong rolled her eyes. She was already 18 years old, already an adult. But Qin Feiyang was only 17 years old now, even a year younger than her. How could he have the nerve to call her a child? The three people sized up Lu Hong, a cold light flickering in their eyes. "Qin Feiyang, I'll give you 1 day's time. If you still don't agree by tomorrow, then I, Lu Ziyuan, can tell you very responsibly. From today onwards, there will be no place for you in the temple. Let's go." Lu Ziyuan waved his hand and turned around to leave. "Best not provoke us. Otherwise you'll get it." Before Xiao Hong and Dongqing left, they also left a cold sentence. "These three people are really arrogant." Lu Hong's face was full of disgust. "I like to deal with such arrogant people. The higher they jump, the more painful it will be when they fall." Qin Feiyang raised the corner of his mouth and said with a faint smile, "Three senior brothers, please wait." The three of them looked at each other and smiled. They stopped and turned to look at Qin Feiyang. They thought that Qin Feiyang had thought it through and wanted to be their little follower. Qin Feiyang was about to speak. Swish. But at this moment, two black figures broke through the air like lightning. One of them was Zhou. The person next to him was a middle-aged man. He had a tall and straight body, and his eyebrows were like swords, with a piercing sharpness. "Greetings, Elder Shi." As soon as this person arrived, Lu Ziyuan and the other two immediately bowed to welcome him. The middle-aged man stopped in the corridor and glanced at the three of them indifferently. Lu Ziyuan said respectfully, "May I know why Elder Shi has come to see us?" Zhou said with a smile, "Elder Shi is not here for you." Lu Ziyuan and the other two were puzzled. If he was not here for them, what was he doing here? Elder Shi looked at Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong and said to Zhou, "Is it them?" "Yes." Zhou nodded. Elder Shi immediately walked towards Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong. Zhou followed closely behind. "Is he here for them? How is this possible?" Lu Ziyuan and the other two looked at each other, their eyes full of disbelief. They were just two new disciples. Why did Elder Shi have to come here personally? A strong sense of anger welled up in his heart. At first, they all thought that Elder Shi was here for them. It turned out that they were just thinking too much. It had nothing to do with them at all. It seems that Elder Shi is a big shot. At the same time, Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong looked at each other with a trace of fear in their eyes. This person did not have any aura around him, but he gave off a great sense of danger. He was like a ferocious beast that did not bare its fangs. Zhou smiled and said, "Qin Feiyang, Lu Hong, the person beside me is Shi Ming. He is the martial arts hall's enforcement elder. Hurry up and greet him." The martial arts hall's enforcement elder. Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong's pupils contracted. They hurriedly cupped their hands and said, "Greetings, Elder Shi." Shi Ming sized up the two and said, "I heard from Zhou that you are quite talented in martial arts. Why did you go astray and choose alchemy?" "What? Is Elder Shi here to snatch people?" Lu Ziyuan and the other two were shocked. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for your kindness, Elder Shi, but we prefer alchemy." "What's so good about alchemy?" Shi Ming's face was full of disdain. He said, "As long as you change your mind and come to my martial arts hall, I promise to give you cultivation rooms number 1 and 2. What was going on? Qin Feiyang had level 10 spiritual power. On the path of alchemy, his future could be said to be bright. But now, not only did Elder Shi come to snatch people openly, but he also offered such amazing conditions. Could it be that the martial arts talent of these two people and one wolf far surpassed their alchemy talent? Hearing Shi Ming's words, Lu Ziyuan and the other two were full of disbelief. Until now, They finally realized that they had greatly underestimated this person. Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong also looked at each other. They did not expect Zhou Xi to invite the enforcement elder. Lu Hong said in a low voice, "The treatment in the martial arts hall is indeed better than here." Qin Feiyang said helplessly, "It can't be helped. They don't have alchemy rooms there." Zhou Xi smiled and said, "Qin Feiyang, Lu Hong, this is a good opportunity. You have to cherish it. Coming to my side to snatch people, do you have to get my consent too?" Right at this moment, a displeased voice sounded. A beautiful woman descended here like lightning. She was wearing a long white dress. Her face was slightly weathered, but still charming. Her figure was exquisite and did not match her age at all. Beside the beautiful woman, there was another person. It was precisely Zhou Dong. "Greetings to Elder Lu. Greetings to Elder Zhou Dong." Lu Ziyuan and the other two bowed one after another. But stormy waves were set off in their hearts. Two great elders came one after another. What was this situation? The two of them merely nodded their heads indifferently and walked towards Qin Feiyang and the other man. This feeling of being ignored made the three especially angry. Zhou Dong said disdainfully, "Zhou Xi, I knew you wouldn't stop." "Humph." Zhou Xi snorted through his nose and said, "I'm thinking for them. Letting them stay here is simply hindering their future." Chapter 307. Before Elder Shi and Elder Lu could say anything, the two brothers started fighting. What's going on? What's so special about them that they need to fight like this? Lu Ziyuan and the other two clenched their fists. Even when they entered the sacred palace, they didn't receive such treatment. Why did these two have it? At this moment, Elder Lu waved her hand without turning her head. "Lu Ziyuan, go do what you need to do." She actually chased them away? Lu Ziyuan and the other two couldn't believe it. After coming to the sacred palace for so long, Elder Lu had never ignored them like this. This was the first time. Just because of these two new disciples. They couldn't accept it. On what basis? Elder Lu suddenly turned her head and looked at the three of them. She shouted, "I told you to leave. Didn't you hear me?" "Yes." The three of them trembled and hurriedly left as if they were running for their lives. When they turned around, their eyes were filled with ruthlessness. They could already feel the threat. If they let these two continue to stay in the pill hall, they would climb over their heads sooner or later. Walking into the courtyard, Lu Ziyuan turned around and looked at Xiao Hong and Dong Cheng. He said coldly, "I'm going back home. Once the four elders leave, you guys can teach them a lesson." "All right." The two of them nodded. Lu Ziyuan waved his hand, and a teleportation door opened. He walked in with big strides. Xiao Hong and Dong Cheng also jumped a few times and landed on the 10th floor. They stood side by side in front of the railing and looked down. Their eyes were filled with ruthlessness. Outside the alchemy room, the brothers Zhou Dong and Zhou Xi were still fighting each other. Elder Shi and Elder Lu looked at Qin Feiyang and Dong Cheng with a strange light in their eyes. Elder Lu suddenly said, "All right, both of you shut up." "Umph." The two brothers snorted at the same time and retreated to the side. Zhou Dong said, "Qin Feiyang, Lu Hong, don't be afraid. Elder Lu Yun is our enforcement elder. She won't let some people do whatever they want here." "Zhou Dong, what do you mean? I'm only here to persuade them. I didn't do anything. You call this doing whatever you want?" Ming frowned. Lu Yun said, "You barged in without my permission. Aren't you doing whatever you want?" Ming said disdainfully, "I can't be bothered to argue with a woman with long hair and short knowledge." "My hair is long but my knowledge is short?" Lu Yun was taken aback as he sneered. "I think you are the descendant of a pig. You are all brawn and no brains." Ming glared at her and shouted, "You stinking woman, can't you watch your mouth?" Lu Yun said with a smile, "That depends on who it is. I'm already very polite to a shameless person like you." "You," Ming pointed at Lu Yun and said angrily, "All right, you're impressive. I won't waste my breath on you, all right." He looked at Qin Feiyang and the other man and said, "Where should we go? Think about it carefully. Don't be led astray by some people." Lu Yun frowned and said, "He has level 10 spiritual energy. and his future achievements in alchemy are limitless. Joining your martial arts hall would be a mistake. What about her? Ming pointed at Lu Hong and said angrily, she only has level 5 spiritual energy. She has no future in alchemy. Aren't you letting her stay here mislead others? Lu Yin sneered and said, she is willing to stay here. What does it have to do with you? Qin Feiyang and the other man looked at each other. Zhou Shi and Zhou Dong had just finished their quarrel, and now the two of them were at it again. They couldn't let this go on. If they really fought, the commotion would be even bigger. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and said, Elder Shi, can you listen to me? Ming was stunned and said, go ahead. It's my honor that Elder Shi can come here personally. However, I really like alchemy. Besides, the Pill Hall and the Martial Arts Hall are both part of the Sacred Hall. I will not admit that I am a disciple of the Pill Hall, and I will not admit that I am a disciple of the Martial Arts Hall, because I am a disciple of the Sacred Hall. So, Elder, there is no need to be so biased. Everyone should support each other, Qin Feiyang said with a smile. This Ming frowned. What Ming said was reasonable, and he couldn't find a reason to refute it. What about you? He looked at Lu Hong, unwilling to give up. Lu Hong said, I will say the same thing again. Wherever Qin Feiyang is, I will be there. Ming looked at the two of them deeply and sighed. Fine. Since this is your choice, I will not force you. Zhou Shi's expression changed. He hurriedly said, Elder Shi, but before he could say anything, Ming waved his hand and said, forget it. Everyone has their own aspirations. You can't force them. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the other man and said with a smile, if you are not happy here, you can come to the Martial Arts Hall to find me anytime. Thank you, Elder Shi. Qin Feiyang and the other man cupped their hands and thanked him. Lu Yin, congratulations. However, let's see if you have the ability to tie them to the Pill Hall for the rest of their lives. Ming pursed his lips into a meaningful smile, and quickly left with Zhou Shi. Zhou Dong said worriedly, Elder Lu, Elder Shi wouldn't be scheming something, right? It doesn't matter. Lu Yin smiled disdainfully. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the other man and said, you are right to choose to stay in the Pill Hall. After all, alchemists like us are much more precious than martial artists. Precious? Qin Feiyang and the other man looked at each other and smiled bitterly. It seemed like the Sacred Hall wasn't as peaceful as it looked on the surface. Lu Yin said a few more words and left with Zhou Dong. Although it seems like the Martial Arts Hall and the Pill Hall have merged into the Sacred Hall on the surface, they are actually on their own. There are many internal conflicts. Qin Feiyang sighed. It seemed like they had to be more careful than before. Lu Hong nodded and said, now I finally understand why the Mansion Lord told us to keep a low profile. It was because he didn't want them to be too dazzling. He didn't want them to be targeted and bring trouble. Unfortunately, they didn't take the Mansion Lord's instructions to heart. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly and said, I'm already keeping a low profile. Otherwise, my mental strength would be enough to shake the entire spiritual state. Yeah, what's up with your mental strength? Wasn't it level 9 in the past? How did it suddenly become level 10? Lu Hong was surprised. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, back in the Black Bear City, I didn't want to enter the Pill Hall. So when Fengqing tested my mental strength, I deliberately hid it. Oh. Lu Hong was enlightened. This person really hid his strength well. He deceived everyone in the county of Yan. Suddenly, her eyes trembled as she said in surprise, from what you said just now, did you deliberately hide it this time? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and said, when I tested my mental strength to level 10, my mental strength was still very strong. So, it's definitely not level 10. Lu Hong was surprised and said, then what level is your mental strength? I didn't seriously test it, so I don't know. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Freak. Lu Hong looked at him in shock, as if she was looking at a monster. If Lu Ziyuan and the others knew about this, what would they think? This freak was indeed not comparable to ordinary people. Brother is back. At this moment, Wolf King came back as fast as lightning. Qin Feiyang asked, how's the investigation? There are 2 ways to snatch the alchemy room. First, defeat the other party with alchemy. Second, go to the training field and fight and defeat the other party. But no private fighting is allowed. Wolf King said. Lu Hong smiled and said, that's easy. With your alchemy skills, you can completely crush Lu Ziyuan and the others. Wolf King asked suspiciously, how do you know Lu Ziyuan? Lu Hong covered her mouth and laughed. He came just now and wanted Qin Feiyang to be his little follower. Damn, this person really doesn't know his own weight. Wolf King sneered. Qin Feiyang asked, do you know his background? Yes. He's a celebrity in the temple. Lu Ziyuan, level 10 mental strength, is a disciple of the Lu family, and is now a 7-star battle king. Wolf King pursed his lips and said. Qin Feiyang's face twitched. Another person from the Lu family. Why was he so fated with the Lu family? Lu Hong asked doubtfully. What about Dong Cheng and Xiao Hong? Their backgrounds are not simple either. The Dong family and the Xiao family are both super families in the city, enough to be on par with the Lu family. Both of them are 7-star battle kings. But apart from them, there's another person who's the most awesome. Wolf King said. Qin Feiyang asked, is it Lu Xingqian? No, it's a woman. What's her name again? By the way, Murong Jing has a level 11 mental strength, and can refine the real supreme grade pills. Moreover, she's an 8-star battle king and the owner of Alchemy Room number 1. But it's said that this woman keeps a very low profile. Ever since she came to the temple, she rarely shows herself. She doesn't compete with anyone for fame or fortune, and she has never refined pills to outsiders. Wolf King said. Lu Hong smiled and said, she already has Alchemy Room number 1. What's there to compete for? What's there to compete for? That's not right. If Alchemy Room number 1 belongs to Murong Jing, then what about Lu Xingqian? His cultivation is even stronger than Ren Wushuang's. We've seen the pills he refined. Shouldn't Alchemy Room number 1 belong to him? Qin Feiyang was puzzled. You guys don't know about this, right? According to what I heard, there's another very awesome place in the temple. This place is the Inner Hall. Only disciples who have broken through to the War Emperor realm are qualified to enter the Inner Hall. This Lu Xingqian is in the Inner Hall. Wolf King said proudly. Inner Hall? Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong looked at each other with a trace of surprise in their eyes. Although Qin Feiyang was the son of the emperor, he had been in the imperial palace all year round. Plus, he was still young at that time, and his status was noble at that time. Therefore, he only knew a little about the temple. And this so-called Inner Hall was also the first time he had heard of it. Wolf King said mysteriously, I also heard that entering the Inner Hall will give you the chance to enter the imperial capital. Qin Feiyang's gaze trembled. It seemed that he really had to make a trip to the Inner Hall. But before that, he had to break through to the War Emperor realm. Qin Feiyang, get over here. At this moment, a loud roar exploded in the Pillfire Palace, alarming everyone in the Pillfire Palace. It was Xiao Hong's voice. What's going on? Who is Qin Feiyang? Senior brother Xiao Hong's tone seems to be a little angry. Chapter 308. 2 men and 1 wolf were stunned. As soon as Elder Lu left, Xiao Hong began to clamor. It seemed that it was premeditated. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, let's go, we won't be polite to those who come up looking for abuse. Clang. On both sides of the corridor in front, stone doors kept opening. One by one, disciples in white walked out. Someone grabbed Qin Feiyang's arm and asked, Brother, let me ask you, who is Qin Feiyang? I am. Qin Feiyang smiled. You? Those disciples were suddenly surprised. Brother, are you going? Seeing that you are a new disciple, I kindly advise you not to go. That Xiao Hong is not to be trifled with. You should quickly go back to the alchemy room and hide. That's right, as long as you don't come out of the alchemy room, he won't dare to do anything to you. The people in front rushed up to persuade him. Thank you for your concern. If you are free, come and watch the show. Qin Feiyang smiled. Why doesn't this person listen to advice? Forget it, let him be. Newborn calves are not afraid of tigers, they will regret it later. Let's go and see. The disciples from the 1st floor to the 9th floor had basically all come out and crowded in the corridor around the patio. There was a lot of discussion. At the same time, the 10th floor. In addition to the first alchemy room, the other 6 alchemy rooms also opened, and 6 young men and women walked out. Xiaohong Dongcheng, you are really not kind, bullying the new disciple again. The 6 people came to the 2 of them. Their tone was a little contemptuous, but their faces were full of smiles. They seemed to be very happy to see the new disciple being bullied. Xiaohong said, "Don't you know that idiot has a 10th level spiritual power?" "What? 10th level spiritual power?" The 6 of them were shocked. Xiaohong shook his head and said, "It seems that your news is not up to date." The corner of Dongcheng's mouth lifted, and he joked, "As long as he stays here, one of you will get out of the 10th floor sooner or later." The 6 people's eyes darkened, and a cold look climbed up their faces. Sanctum. Morongjing, a level 11 spiritual power user. Lu Ziyuan, Xiaohong, and Dongcheng were the 3 people with 10th grade spiritual power. However, there were a total of 10 people with level 9 spiritual power. These 6 people were one of them. However, for them to be able to occupy a seat on the 10th floor, they were undoubtedly the cream of the crop among the 10. However, as soon as Qin Feiyang arrived, one person was destined to leave the 10th floor. This was something no one wanted to happen. This was because the 10th floor represented not only the quality of the alchemy flame, but also a symbol of one's status. Those who could stand on the 10th floor were all top-notch alchemists in the Pill Hall. This was a supreme honor. Glory must not be infringed upon. As such, the 6 of them began to hate Qin Feiyang in their hearts. It's him. He is Qin Feiyang. Level 10 spiritual power. He's so young. I'm afraid he's only 17 or 18. The people on the 9th floor suddenly became restless. The 6 people looked down and saw 2 people and 1 wolf walking out from a corridor and standing at the bottom of the patio. It's them? The 6 of them looked at Xiaohong and Dongcheng. Yes. The 2 of them nodded. They were like monarchs, looking down at Qin Feiyang with arrogant expressions. At the same time, Qin Feiyang also raised his head and looked over. The moment their gazes met, they collided and created invisible sparks. Dongcheng said, "Qin Feiyang, kneel on the ground immediately and tell everyone loudly that you're our little follower. Then we'll let you go." Qin Feiyang lifted the corner of his mouth and said calmly, "What if I say no?" Dongcheng sneered, "If you dare to say no, you won't be able to move an inch in the future." Xiaohong said, "That's right. As long as we say a word, all the disciples of the Pill Hall will become your enemy. A mouthful of saliva from each of them is enough to drown you." Qin Feiyang laughed and said, "You guys are really influential." Xiaohong said disdainfully, "It's good that you know. Hurry up. Don't waste my time. You still think you're someone important." The 2 people and the wolf looked at each other. A trace of sarcasm crept up their eyes. Whoosh! At the same time, they jumped up and landed on the 10th floor with a few leaps. "You guys dare to come to the 10th floor without permission? Don't you know the rules of the Pill Hall? Get down." The 6 people shouted. Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned. He looked at Wolf King and asked, "What rules?" Wolf King said, "Challenge them. Only those who win are qualified to stand here." "I see." Qin Feiyang smiled. He looked at Xiaohong and said, "Where's Lu Ziyuan? Are you qualified to ask him?" The 2 of them looked disdainful. "Do I need to be qualified?" Qin Feiyang touched his nose and looked at Xiaohong. He smiled and said, "Then the 2 of you. Who wants to compete with me in alchemy?" As soon as he said that, it immediately caused a huge uproar. The entire Pillfire Hall went crazy. "What? You want to challenge us?" Xiaohong pointed at their noses and looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. Qin Feiyang asked, "Can't I?" "Haha. Compete with us in alchemy?" I'm dying of laughter. Qin Feiyang, you're really an idiot. Why don't you take a piss and look at your reflection? How sad, how sad. Do you think you can make pills that surpass us just because you have level 10 mind power? Let me tell you, don't be too naive. We're all experienced alchemists. A newbie like you can't compare to us. The 2 of them laughed out loud, their expressions full of disdain. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, "Is that so? Then let's play. Okay. If you want to play, we'll play with you. But if you lose, you have to kneel down and kowtow to us in front of everyone. You have to call us Grandpa when you see us in the future. Do you dare? Xiaohong sneered. Lu Hong asked. What if you lose? Xiaohong looked at the people on the 9th floor below and said with a smile. Tell them, will Dongcheng and I lose? No way. Everyone roared in unison. Be arrogant. The more arrogant you are, the more embarrassed you will be later. Lu Hong muttered secretly. Xiaohong looked at Qin Feiyang proudly and said, If we lose, we will call you Grandpa in the future. Wolf King chuckled and said, How boring. Let's add one more. The loser will crawl under my crotch. That's fine. Senior brother Xiaohong, senior brother Dongcheng, we support you. The people below roared. Originally, Xiaohong and Dongcheng were still a little angry, but as soon as they heard the support from below, a bright smile immediately crawled up their faces. They nodded in agreement without hesitation. Xiaohong looked down and said, Someone go and invite the 2 deacon elders in, lest they lose and renege on their debt. I'll go. A skinny disciple quickly ran out. Very soon, the 2 middle-aged men who were guarding outside the door strode into the room. Whoosh! Seeing that the commotion was so big, the 2 of them could not help but frown. They jumped and instantly landed on the 10th floor. Have you thought it through? The 2 of them looked at Qin Feiyang and asked. Qin Feiyang nodded. The 2 burly men looked at him deeply and nodded. Okay, we will be witnesses. Xiaohong said with a smile. Qin Feiyang, let's refine the battle chi pill. Qin Feiyang said, Sorry, I don't know how to refine the battle chi pill for the time being. There was a pill recipe in the pill scripture, but he had not read it carefully. You don't know? Xiaohong was stunned and laughed. You don't even know how to refine the battle chi pill. What do you have to compete with us? Qin Feiyang said with a smile, Let's refine the prolongation pill. I believe both of you should know how to do it. Haha. The prolongation pill is of a higher level than the battle chi pill. Do you know how to refine it? Dongcheng laughed. This person was so silly that he was cute. Qin Feiyang said with a faint smile. You'll know once you try. Xiaohong said. Okay, I'll show you what a genius alchemy room is. Dongcheng said. I have no objections. Since the 3 of you have no objections, hurry up and prepare a set of herbs. If one of you wastes the herbs, you lose. Do you have any objections? The 2 burly middle-aged men said. No. Xiaohong and Dongcheng shook their heads. I do. Qin Feiyang said. If I compete with the 2 of them, will both their alchemy rooms belong to me if I win? One of the burly men said. In theory, yes, but you're only one person. Why do you need 2 alchemy rooms? Wouldn't you be wasting one? Qin Feiyang said. Who said I'm only one person? Don't I have Lu Hong next to me? She's also an alchemist. Lu Hong said in a low voice. I don't need it. Don't worry about it. Qin Feiyang glanced at her and said to Xiaohong and Dongcheng. Will you give up your alchemy rooms if I win? As long as you have the ability. The 2 of them sneered. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. All right then, you guys can start. I'll take the opportunity to observe. Observe? Xiaohong and Dongcheng looked at each other, and were even more certain that this person was just putting on an act. In fact, he did not know how to refine the life extension pill at all. Okay, I'll give you a chance. Xiaohong flicked his sleeves and walked side by side with Dongcheng into alchemy room 3. 2 men and a wolf, the 2 burly middle-aged men also walked in. This is a place for people. Seeing this luxurious alchemy room, the 2 men and the wolf could not help but have a trace of desire in their eyes. Take the opportunity to observe a little longer because soon, you'll be scrambling back to the 1st floor. Xiaohong smiled disdainfully and said to Dongcheng. I remember that you have a set of herbs on you. Dongcheng said. Yes, I do. Xiaohong said. Then you refine it first, I'll go to the resource hall to buy the herbs, I'll be back soon. All right. Dongcheng nodded. Xiaohong looked at Qin Feiyang and said contemptuously. Do you have any medicinal herbs? I'm afraid not. I reckon that you don't even know how many medicinal herbs there are for the prolonging life pill, right? Kid, if you fight with us, you will lose miserably. Haha. Xiao Hong laughed loudly and turned to leave. The 6 young men and women of the 9th level also walked into the alchemy room one after another, looking at Qin Feiyang with eyes full of hostility. Dongqing looked at the 2 burly middle-aged men and said, "2 elders, please keep an eye on me. Don't let some people disturb my alchemy." The 2 nodded. Next, Dongqing walked into the alchemy room, took out a set of medicinal herbs, and placed it on the stone table. Chapter 309. Qin Feiyang observed for a while. Although this person was very arrogant, his alchemy technique was indeed very good. There was no extra movement, nor the slightest pause. Every step was precisely in place. He also had the capital to be arrogant. His gaze moved to the pill furnace again. He didn't know if he didn't look, but when he saw it he was shocked. The pill furnace was green all over, as if it was made of a peerless jade, and it was actually glowing with a hazy treasure light. It was actually a 3rd-grade pill furnace, because only 3rd-grade and above pill furnaces would emit treasure light. And the higher the grade of the pill furnace, the brighter the treasure light. Sure enough, he's worthy of being a disciple of a wealthy family. Qin Feiyang muttered. In terms of pill furnaces, Xiao Hong and Dongqing had the advantage. It was no wonder that the 2 of them were so confident. The entire alchemy room was silent. 100 breaths passed. The prolonging life pill was finally out. Dongqing grabbed the pill and lowered his head to look at it. There was a vague pill mark on the pill. Seeing the pill pattern, a bright smile crawled on his face. Wolf King leaned forward and said with a smile, "Let me see." Dongqing spread out his hands and said proudly, "If you want to see, then see." Wolf King exclaimed, "Amazing, there is actually a pill pattern. This is the first time I have seen a top-grade pill." Dongqing was even more proud. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, "It's too late for you to regret now." Qin Feiyang shook his head and said, "I didn't expect senior brother Dongqing to have such high attainments in alchemy. To be honest, I really regret it." "Only now do you know regret? It's so silly that it's cute." The 6 young men and women with 9th-level spiritual force looked at Qin Feiyang with disdain, and surrounded Dongqing one after another, flattering and fawning over him. "Hey!" Wolf King laughed sinisterly and returned to Qin Feiyang's side, sending a sound transmission. "I said he's fat, he's really panting." Qin Feiyang smiled without saying a word. At this moment, Xiao Hong ran into the alchemy room panting. Wiping the sweat from his forehead, he looked at Dongqing and asked, "Is the refining done?" Dongqing nodded with a smile. "Of course. Actually, there's no need for you to refine it." "What do you mean?" Xiao Hong was puzzled. Dongqing said, "After seeing the life-prolonging pill I refined, Qin Feiyang has already begun to regret challenging us." "Haha." Xiao Hong laughed heartily and turned to look at Qin Feiyang, saying playfully, "If you knew this would happen, why did you do it in the first place? Just wait until you kneel down and call me grandpa." Xiao Hong, Dongqing, congratulations on becoming grandfathers so early. But this grandson, whose son is he? The 6 young men and women laughed. "Of course he's my son. Dongqing is just his god-grandfather." Xiao Hong laughed heartily. He walked into the alchemy room, took out a set of herbs, and began to refine pills. Qin Feiyang glanced at Xiao Hong, then turned to look at the 6 people with narrowed eyes. Seeing this, Lu Hong and Wolf King looked at each other with a trace of gloating in their eyes. They knew Qin Feiyang too well. Every time he showed such a look, it meant that he had the intention to kill. It could be imagined that these 6 people would definitely end up very miserably in the future. 100 breaths passed. The life-prolonging pill refined by Xiao Hong was finally out of the furnace, with a faint pill pattern on it. He showed great confidence. Grabbing the pill without even looking at it, he looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "It's your turn." Qin Feiyang smiled and walked to the side of the furnace, but did not immediately take out the herbs. He lowered his head and pondered. Xiao Hong said playfully, "Are there no herbs? Do you need me to give you one?" He didn't know that Qin Feiyang was actually thinking about how to lower the quality of the pill. That's right. It was to lower the quality, because, if he really refined a pill with 2 pill patterns, it would definitely cause a huge uproar in the spiritual state. At that time, there were definitely many people who wanted to curry favor with him. But there were definitely a lot of people who wanted to harm him. All in all, he couldn't be too high profile. Dongqing urged, "Hurry up, don't waste time. If you really can't, just admit defeat. Might as well use the nether devil flame." Qin Feiyang muttered and looked at Xiaohong. "Please take your furnace away." "Ha." Xiaohong was slightly stunned and said strangely, "You have to know that this is a third-grade furnace. You have picked up a big bargain. You should thank me." Qin Feiyang didn't waste any more time, and directly picked up the furnace, and placed it on the ground. Then, he waved his hand, and with a clang, the bronze furnace appeared. Xiaohong and the others were stunned. Originally, they all thought that Qin Feiyang might have a furnace of a higher grade than a third-grade furnace. But taking a closer look, it was only a second-grade furnace. Didn't he know that the higher the grade of the furnace, the better the quality of the pills refined? Dongqing whispered. He didn't use a third-grade furnace and insisted on using a second-grade furnace. If there's nothing wrong with his brain, then he definitely doesn't know how to refine pills. Xiaohong sneered. "Isn't that better?" The 6 young men and women also pursed their lips with a hint of mockery. Even the 2 middle-aged men couldn't help but frown. Was this new disciple really that stupid? Or was he pretending to be stupid? The show is finally about to begin. Wolf King and Lu Hong both muttered in their hearts. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang waved his hand and the nether devil flame appeared. Ha! He actually has his own alchemy fire. How is that possible? Seeing the nether devil flame, Xiaohong and the others' hearts were suddenly set off by stormy waves. Alchemy fire was very rare. Even if it was only a first-grade alchemy fire, it couldn't be found outside. Because once an alchemy fire appeared in the spiritual state, it would be snatched away by the holy sanctum. Moreover, there had been no news of an alchemy fire appearing in the world for many years. But this new disciple actually controlled a type of alchemy fire? This was too shocking. Even the 2 middle-aged men were in disbelief. Not only did he have an alchemy furnace, but he also had his own alchemy fire. Was this kid really a newbie? They couldn't help but begin to doubt. Dongqing's expression was also a little flustered. Don't panic. So what if he has an alchemy fire? Only the holy sanctum has the recipe for the prolongation pill. He's a new disciple and hasn't even been to the resource hall. He definitely doesn't know how to refine it. Xiaohong whispered. Dongqing said, but just now he watched the entire process of us refining pills. Xiaohong scolded in a low voice. Don't you have a brain? Have you seen anyone who can grasp the steps and methods of refining pills with just a few glances? That's true. Dongqing nodded, and his hanging heart finally relaxed. Without the alchemy recipe, everything was in vain. However, they would never have thought that Qin Feiyang had an alchemy scripture that recorded all kinds of alchemy recipes. Alchemy recipes were nothing to him at all. In the blink of an eye, Qin Feiyang took out the medicinal herbs one by one. His mental force emerged, rolled up a medicinal herb, put it into the bronze furnace, and began to refine the spirit body. No. His technique is so proficient. As soon as an expert made a move, one would know whether it was true or not. The people present, except for Wolf King and Lu Hong, were all experts in alchemy. As soon as they saw Qin Feiyang put the medicinal herbs into the furnace, they knew that not only did he know alchemy, but he was also an experienced alchemist. No. Even if he knows alchemy, it's impossible for him to refine the prolongation pill. Xiaohong clenched his hands and stared at the furnace. 1 stalk, 2 stalks, 3 stalks, 4 stalks, 5 stalks. One by one, the medicinal herbs were constantly thrown into the furnace and turned into spiritual liquid. In less than 30 breaths. Thus, all of the spiritual liquid was extracted. Impossible. This must be a dream. He just came to the holy sanctum today. How could he know the method to refine the prolongation pill? Xiaohong's eyes were red. The speed of refining the spiritual liquid was actually twice as fast as his and Dongqing's. What did this mean? This meant that Qin Feiyang's alchemy methods were more sophisticated than theirs. The 6 young men and women, as well as the 2 middle-aged men, were also dumbfounded at this moment. There was no sloppiness in the whole process, and all the movements were done in one go. Such a skilled technique, even they were left in the dust. What should we do? We may lose. Dongqing whispered. Don't worry, he's only using a second-grade furnace. Even if he can refine the prolongation pill, he definitely can't refine the supreme-grade prolongation pill. Xiao Hong gritted his teeth and said word by word. At this moment, the entire alchemy room fell into a dead silence. Everyone unconsciously lowered the sound of their breathing and heartbeat. 50 breaths had just passed. Inside the pill cauldron, rays of dazzling green light blossomed. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. Whoosh! A dark green pill flew out from the cauldron. He grabbed it in his palm and put away the nether devil flame and the bronze furnace. Xiao Hong and the others' eyes all fell on his hand holding the elixir in an instant. Phew! Qin Feiyang let out a long breath, looked at Xiao Hong and Dongqing, and said with a faint smile, Do you want to know something? What? The two of them were puzzled. Actually, in my eyes, you're just clowns. I said so much nonsense to you before, purely to tease you. Don't tell me you really think I'm a fool. The corners of Qin Feiyang's mouth lifted slightly, with a hint of mockery. Xiao Hong and Dongqing's faces immediately darkened. It turned out that this bastard had been playing them like monkeys. To be honest, I really don't know where you find the courage to ask me to be your little follower. I don't know how you dare to say that you have more alchemy experience than me. I'm also very puzzled. What's there to show off about an almost invisible pill pattern? Shouldn't a supreme-grade elixir be like this? At the end of Qin Feiyang's words, he grinned and opened his clenched big hand, and the prolongation pill was suddenly exposed to everyone's eyes. In an instant, the air and time in this place seemed to have stopped. Except for Wolf King and Lu Hong, everyone's eyes were fixed on the elixir in Qin Feiyang's hand. The dazzling pill pattern was like a bolt of lightning, fiercely striking their minds. In their hearts, they were even more shocked. That's right. This was a real supreme-grade elixir. Only by refining such a pill pattern could one be qualified to be called a supreme-grade alchemist. Xiao Hong and Dongqing looked at the prolongation pill. Their faces flushed red, and a deep sense of humiliation emerged in their hearts. Until now they didn't know. What they had done before was so childish and ridiculous. It was simply a big joke. In front of this person, they were not even qualified to carry his shoes. Chapter 310. Hey, aren't you guys awesome? Why aren't you talking now? Come on, keep being arrogant. Wolf King glanced at Xiao Hong and the others and shouted, his eyes full of disdain. Immediately, everyone shuddered and came back to their senses. They all looked at Qin Feiyang. The 6 young men and women with 9th-level mind power had a trace of fear and respect in their eyes. The 2 middle-aged men, on the other hand, were excited. They didn't expect another alchemy genius to come. As for Xiao Hong and Dongqing, they stared at Qin Feiyang, their fingers clenched and their faces flushed. His heart was filled with shame and indignation that could not be dispelled. How dare you tease us? You obviously know how to refine pills, but you pretended not to. You've gone too far. The 2 gritted their teeth, their faces twisted and their eyes spitting fire. Tease. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. He put away the prolongation pill and said indifferently, I never said that I don't know how to refine pills. Xiao Hong roared. Then why did you pretend to be crazy when we came to find you? It was fun. I wanted to keep a low profile, but I didn't expect you to come to me as soon as I came to the Pillfire Hall. You even took me for a fool. Of course I had to tease you. Now you finally know who's the fool? Qin Feiyang laughed. You, Xiao Hong and Dongqing were furious. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and said, All right. Stop talking nonsense here. Pack up your things and get out of here. Xiao Hong shouted, You're the one who needs to get out. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, Have you forgotten that this alchemy room already belongs to me? Hurry up and stop nagging. Cough, cough. Xiao Hong, Dongqing, accept your loss. The 2 middle-aged men laughed. There's nothing to pack. Xiao Hong glanced at the 2 burly men, took away the grade 3 alchemy furnace, and said to Qin Feiyang, You wait for me, Dongqing, let's go. The 2 of them flicked their sleeves and walked outside. Wolf King said, "Wait. What else do you want? Let me tell you, don't go too far." The two of them glared at Wolf King viciously. "Ehe, I'm not bullying you. I'm just asking you to fulfill your promise." Wolf King laughed sinisterly. He stood up and strode out of the alchemy room. Seeing this, both of their faces instantly turned deathly pale. They already knew what Wolf King was going to do. Wolf King was standing in the corridor outside. He spread his legs and laughed. "Hurry up and come in. The outcome has already been decided." "Who won? Do you still need to think about it?" "It must be senior brothers Xiaohong and Dongcheng." When the people gathered on the opposite ninth floor saw Wolf King coming out, they couldn't help but wait. In the past, those genius disciples had used all kinds of methods to bully the new disciples, but this was the first time in history. However, they didn't know that the person who was going to crawl under was the genius disciple they had admired for a long time. Looking at Xiaohong and Dongcheng, their faces were ashen. They stood motionless in the alchemy room. Their feet seemed to be glued to the ground. They didn't dare to go out, because as long as they went out, they would become a big joke in the temple in the future. "What are you waiting for? Hurry up, don't waste my time. What's more, crawling under my crotch is your blessing, understand?" The Wolf King chuckled. "Blessing?" Qin Feiyang's face twitched. How could this be considered a blessing? It was clearly bad luck. Lu Hong couldn't help but cover her mouth and laugh. This guy really knew how to insult people. The 6 young men and women also had strange expressions on their faces. This was simply a shameless wolf. As for Xiaohong and Dongcheng, they were about to explode in anger. If looks could kill, Wolf King would have died countless times. Qin Feiyang, although Xiaohong and Dongcheng started the trouble first, this kind of behavior is a bit ridiculous. Why don't we just forget about it? Yes, after all, they are all famous people. It's too embarrassing to do this. Just get them to apologize and admit their mistakes. The two middle-aged men couldn't stand it anymore, and looked at Qin Feiyang to persuade him. "Embarrassing? Elders, there's something wrong with what you're saying. Don't tell me that they don't want to embarrass Qin Feiyang by asking him to kneel in public?" Lu Hong frowned. "This?" The two middle-aged men looked at each other and were speechless for a moment. Qin Feiyang said indifferently, "Face is earned by oneself, not given by others. Xiaohong Dongcheng, you have to crawl under it today. Do you know who we are? Do you know how big our background is? Aren't you afraid of death?" Xiaohong and Dongcheng said gloomily. "Don't talk to me about family background. I don't buy it. Let me tell you, even if God comes today, you have to crawl under it for me." Qin Feiyang sneered. "Crawl, crawl. This is what you promised. Who can you blame?" The two middle-aged men waved their hands impatiently. Hearing this, Xiaohong and Dongcheng's eyes suddenly turned red. Like two beasts, they stared at Qin Feiyang firmly. "Qin Feiyang, I promise you will die a horrible death. Wait and see," the two of them said coldly and walked out of the alchemy room decisively. They lay on the ground and crawled toward Wolf King's crotch one after another. "What? Xiaohong and Dongcheng lost? How is this possible? Oh my God, this is crazy. That Qin Feiyang is so capable?" The people below instantly burst into an uproar. Their faces and eyes were full of disbelief. Crack. When these discussions fell into Xiaohong's and Ye Tian's ears, they were like invisible slaps that continuously slapped them in the face. They clenched their hands tightly and their faces were distorted, which made them look extremely ferocious at this moment. Xiaohong suddenly raised his head, stared at Wolf King, and roared hysterically, "Bastard, I will kill you sooner or later." "Damn, you scared me." Wolf King's body trembled and suddenly screamed. But the next moment, Wolf King spurted out a water column from a certain part of his body and shot directly into Xiaohong's mouth. Seeing this sudden scene, Qin Feiyang and others next to him were all dumbfounded. This ruffian wolf actually peed at this time? The most important thing was that it sprayed into Xiaohong's mouth and face. And the range was not ordinary. Dongcheng, who followed behind Xiaohong, was not spared and was drenched in urine. Xiaohong and Dongcheng were startled, before the flames of fury in their hearts erupted like a volcano. "I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I'm too timid. I accidentally peed because of you. You can't blame me. Why are you guys so loud? Don't you know that my little heart is very fragile? Wolf King hurriedly explained in a panic, and his big pupils were full of grievances and innocence. Or is it our fault? Xiao Hong and Dongcheng were stunned. Shameless. It was obviously premeditated, but now he pretended to be very hurt. It's really despicable. He's simply a shameless bastard. The 6 young men and women with 9th-level spiritual force twitched their faces and couldn't help but curse in their hearts. This ruffian wolf must not be provoked. It was really too cheap. Whoever dared to provoke it was an idiot. Bastard, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to tear you into pieces. Boom. Xiao Hong and Dongqing couldn't help but say word by word. Their momentum suddenly erupted. They climbed up from the ground and looked at Wolf King with a ferocious face. Their eyes were red as if soaked in blood. Their whole body was full of hostility. Stop! 2 middle-aged men saw that the situation was not good and hurriedly came forward to reprimand them. One of them turned to look at Qin Feiyang and frowned. This is really too much, isn't it? Cough. Qin Feiyang looked at the complacent Wolf King, clenched his fist and put it to his mouth. He coughed and said helplessly, 2 elders, you really can't blame the white-eyed wolf. The 2 frowned. 2 elders, you don't know. Although the white-eyed wolf is big in size, he is very timid and can't be frightened. Xiao Hong is to blame for this situation. Who told him to be so fierce? Not to mention the white-eyed wolf. Even I would be frightened. Qin Feiyang laughed. Who would believe that? The 2 middle-aged men, the 6 young men and women, and the people below all muttered in their hearts. He had only heard that wolves were cruel and cunning by nature. It was the first time they heard that wolves were timid and couldn't be frightened. Looking for an excuse, shouldn't he find a more reasonable one? Fine, you just don't want to get in, right? Qin Feiyang sighed deeply and waved to Dongcheng and Dongcheng. Okay, I'll be magnanimous this time. You don't need to get in. Magnanimous? Everyone was speechless. They had seen shameless people, but they had never seen such a shameless person. Sure enough, birds of a feather flocked together. This man and wolf were not good people. Bastards! Can you be any more shameless? Let me tell you, today's matter is not over. If you have the guts, come with me to the martial arts practice field. Xiao Hong and Dongcheng were furious. One pretended to be timid and aggrieved. The other pretended to be magnanimous and good. They were the ones who were humiliated. Shouldn't they be the ones who should be aggrieved? Even if they were shameless, they couldn't be so shameless to this extent. One-on-one? What's your cultivation? What's mine and the white-eyed wolf's cultivation? You have the nerve to challenge us one-on-one. Is there something wrong with your brain? Qin Feiyang ridiculed and felt very good in his heart. This kind of person, if you don't teach him a lesson, he won't know what's good for him. As for one-on-one, he wasn't that stupid. Hearing this, the anger in Xiao Hong and Dongcheng's heart became more and more uncontrollable. Aren't you very arrogant? Say yes if you have the guts. I'll let you use one hand, how about that? You still don't dare to say yes? Are you still a fucking man? Dongcheng roared. Idiot. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said lightly, if you really have the ability, come and compete with me in alchemy. You have no guts, you don't deserve to be a man. Dongcheng roared and was about to go crazy. The elixirs that he and Xiao Hong refined had almost no elixir patterns. How could they be compared? Wasn't it obvious that they were bullying? I really feel sorry for you. As alchemists, you don't dare to use alchemy to solve the conflict. You have to use martial arts. How ridiculous. You might as well go to the martial arts hall and use martial arts there. I guarantee that no one will despise you. Chapter 311. Despise. Xiao Hong and Dongqing went crazy. This person really had a glib tongue. Even black could be said to be white by him. Originally, the sacred palace didn't stipulate that the disciples of the Pill Hall had to compete in alchemy. It could also be solved by force. But when Qin Feiyang said that, they actually felt ashamed. It was as if solving it by force was a very shameful thing. Qin Feiyang glanced at the two and couldn't help but laugh. With this little ability, they wanted him to be a follower? What a joke. Alright, this matter ends here. As for senior brother Dongcheng's alchemy room number 4, seeing that you guys are so pitiful, I don't want it. Elders, thank you for your hard work. Qin Feiyang waved his hand generously and bowed to the two middle-aged men. Then he turned around and led Lu Hong and Wolf King into alchemy room number 3. Pitiful? Bastard, stop right there. This matter isn't over yet. Xiao Hong and Dongcheng were stunned at first. Then they roared and rushed towards alchemy room number 3. Enough. Don't you think it's shameful enough? If you want to get back your face, then work hard in alchemy. The two middle-aged men shouted. Their bodies trembled and stopped. Their hands were tightly clenched together. Looking at the backs of the two people and the wolf, their eyes were filled with killing intent. One of the deacon elders entered the alchemy room and found Qin Feiyang. He smiled and said, "Can you give me that prolonging pill?" "Sure." Qin Feiyang nodded without saying anything. He took out the prolonging pill and handed it to the man. "Be careful. They definitely won't let this go," the deacon elder whispered and walked out of the alchemy room. Dongcheng, Xiaohong, I'll say this first. The grudge between you two and the Sacred Palace can only be solved by the Sacred Palace's method. If I find out that you used your family's power to deal with Qin Feiyang, don't blame me for being ruthless, the deacon elder said with a cold face. Disciple understands. Xiaohong and the other man suppressed their anger and nodded. As long as you understand. The deacon elder's expression also eased a lot, and after a few more words of advice, he quickly left with the other deacon elder. Bang. Lu Hong also closed the stone door of the pill refining room. She turned to look at Qin Feiyang and asked in confusion, "Why did you return pill refining room 4 to them? You really want it?" Qin Feiyang was surprised. "I don't even concoct pills, why would I want it? I just don't like their faces and don't want to give it to them," Lu Hong said in disgust. "Your thinking is too simple. Even if I give you alchemy room 4, you won't be able to keep it." Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. Lu Hong only had level 5 spiritual power, others would not let her occupy alchemy room 4. The upper echelons of the temple would not allow a disciple with poor aptitude to occupy a good alchemy room. She was afraid that Xiao Hong and the other man would challenge her before her, but warmed up. With her alchemy skills, she was not their opponent at all. In the end, not only would she not be able to keep the alchemy room, but she would also be ruthlessly humiliated by the two. So instead of taking advantage of the moment, she might as well give it up. However, Qin Feiyang was sure that Xiao Hong and the other man would not want alchemy room 4. Because he said that he did not want that alchemy room because he pitted the two of them. This sentence was enough to hurt Xiao Hong and the other man's self-esteem. With their arrogant character, they would definitely not continue to stay in alchemy room 4. At the same time, outside, Dongcheng said unwillingly, "Could it be that this matter is over just like that?" Wishful thinking. We don't dare to touch them in the temple, but as long as they leave the temple, it will be their time of death. Xiao Hong laughed sinisterly. Dongcheng's eyes also flashed with a sinister look. So he's not stupid. Even Xiao Hong and the other man were played by him. He's smarter than anyone else. At the same time, somewhere on the 7th floor, Huang San hid in the crowd, looking at the closed alchemy room 3, his face full of fear. He originally thought that this person was stupid and had no brains. It was only at this moment that he realized that this was just his wishful thinking. This person's brain, even if there were 10, no, even if there were 100 of him added together, he would still not be his opponent. Huang San was also very smart. Knowing that Xiao Hong and Dongcheng would not let him go, he retreated to the back of the crowd, preparing to hide in the alchemy room. However, things did not go as he wished. Xiao Hong suddenly turned around and shouted, "Huang San, get the hell up here." Dongcheng also immediately turned around, lowered his head to look at Huang San, and said gloomily, "If you don't come up in 10 breaths, you will bear the consequences." Huang San's body trembled, and hurriedly ran towards the stairs. Qin Feiyang had extraordinary talent in alchemy, so he was not afraid of these two people. Even the upper echelons of the temple would think of ways to protect Qin Feiyang. But he was different. His talent in alchemy was not high, nor did he have a strong background. He could not afford to offend these two people. So, even though he knew that this trip pointed to disaster, he could only obediently go up. Xiao Hong's eyes flashed with a hint of gloominess. He turned to look at the 6 young men and women, and ordered, "Immediately give up the number 5 and 6 alchemy rooms for me." The man and woman's faces changed. They were the owners of the number 5 and 6 alchemy rooms. The man said angrily, "Xiao Hong, what do you mean? Alchemy room number 4. Didn't Qin Feiyang not want it?" Xiao Hong shouted, "Qin Feiyang already said that, how can we still want it?" Dongqing nodded his head. His tone just now was completely giving us charity. Sure enough, as Qin Feiyang had expected, the two's backbone and self-esteem did not allow them to accept this kind of charity, even though they knew that Qin Feiyang did it on purpose. The woman said, "Since that's the case, then give us the number 4 alchemy room." Xiao Hong waved his hand impatiently. "Do whatever you want." At this time, Huang San walked up and said with a flattering smile, "Senior brother Xiao Hong, senior brother Dongqing, why did you call me up? Of course there's something. Come follow us in." The two of them sneered and turned to walk towards Lu Ziyuan's alchemy room number 2. Huang San was terrified to the extreme, but he could only brace himself and follow. When he entered the alchemy room, Xiao Hong and the other two immediately closed the stone door and kicked it at the same time. Bang! Huang San immediately fell to the ground like a dog eating shit. "You bastard! How dare you lie to us? Is Qin Feiyang stupid? If it weren't for your nonsense, we wouldn't have fallen to this point." The two of them punched and kicked, crazily beating Huang San to vent the anger in their hearts. "Senior brothers, please spare me. This time I made a mistake. It's my fault." "But senior brothers, you have eyes too. If I made a mistake, why did you make a mistake too? You can't put all the blame on me." Huang San wailed in grievance. "Fuck, you still dare to quibble? See if I don't kill you today." Xiao Hong and Dongqing became angrier and angrier. Huang San was also stupid. The two of them were so conceited. How could they admit their mistakes? His words were tantamount to exposing their shortcomings, making the two of them even more embarrassed. Naturally, his fate would be even worse. Shua. At this moment, a young man in white descended into the alchemy room out of thin air. It was Lu Ziyuan. Seeing Xiao Hong and Dongqing beating up Huang San, he couldn't help but be slightly stunned. Then, he was shocked to discover that Huang San was about to die, but the two of them showed no signs of stopping. His expression changed, and he hurriedly went forward to pull the two of them, shouting, "What are you doing? You caused a death in the sacred palace. Even your family members can't save your lives. You're finally back. Let me tell you, this person is asking for a beating." Xiao Hong and Dongqing's anger had not subsided. Lu Ziyuan glanced at the two of them and frowned. "What's going on? Why are you so angry?" Xiao Hong said resentfully, "Is it because of Qin Feiyang? My and Dongqing's alchemy rooms were both robbed by him?" "Him?" Lu Ziyuan smiled disdainfully and said, "Don't joke with me. I'm in a bad mood right now." "Who has the time to joke with you? Go out and see for yourself. He's in my alchemy room right now." Xiao Hong said angrily. Lu Ziyuan was shocked, looking at Xiao Hong and Dongqing's expressions. It did not seem like they were joking. "What's going on? Tell me quickly." He walked into the lounge and sat beside the coffee table, his expression somewhat ugly. Xiao Hong and the other two also entered the lounge. They recounted everything that had happened before in full detail. As for Huang San, he was like a dead dog lying on the ground outside, dying, and no one cared about him. After listening to them, Lu Ziyuan's face was as gloomy as water. "Supreme Great Alchemist. We were all fooled by them. Do you know? In fact, the three of them are all battle monarchs." Lu Ziyuan said. "What? They look like 17 or 18 years old. How could they be battle monarchs? Did you make a mistake?" Xiao Hong and Dongqing's faces were full of disbelief. "I'm not mistaken. When I sent the pills back, Steward Lu told me himself. Also, that woman kicked Lu Feng's balls until they burst. There's something else that's even more shocking. That scoundrel sneaked into the Lu family last night and peeped at Lu Tingting taking a bath. When I found out about this, I immediately used the portal to teleport back and told you to be careful, but I was still a step too late. Lu Ziyuan sighed. Xiao Hong and Dongqing were dumbfounded. That scoundrel is too bold, isn't he? How dare he go to the Lu family and behave atrociously? Lu Ziyuan said, initially, Steward Lu told me to find a chance to get rid of them, but now it seems that it won't be that easy. Xiao Hong and Dongqing nodded. The value of a supreme-grade alchemist could not be measured by money, not to mention that the two people and the wolf were martial Dao monsters, and the higher-ups of the divine sanctum would definitely protect them. But is this the end of the matter? They were unwilling to accept it. Dong. At this moment, there was a knock on the door. Who would come to us at this time? Xiao Hong frowned. Who would come to us knowing that we're angry? Who would be so blind? Let him in and we'll know. Lu Ziyuan smiled and said to Dongqing, go and open the door. Chapter 312. At the door, the Wolf King bared its fangs, and there was a trace of a smile in its bell-like eyes. Behind Wolf King, Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong stood side by side. Their faces were also full of smiles. What are you doing here? Dongqing raised his eyebrows, and then when he saw the smile on Qin Feiyang's face, he said, if you're here to ask for peace and apologize, then forget it. Apologize? Ask for peace. Two people and one wolf were a little stunned. What was with this person's eyes? Couldn't he see that they were here to cause trouble? A good dog doesn't block the way, get out of the way. Wolf King waved its paw, pushed Dongqing aside, and swaggered into the alchemy room. As soon as it saw Lu Ziyuan sitting in the lounge, it turned to look at Qin Feiyang and said with a sneaky smile, Lu Ziyuan is here. That's good. Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong also walked into the alchemy room. What the hell do you want? Xiao Hong suddenly got up and glared at them. Dongqing also closed the stone door and walked into the lounge. He stood beside Xiao Hong, and his eyes flashed with cold light. Lu Ziyuan didn't say anything. Oh, why don't you go wash up? No wonder, it's because my holy water is too fragrant that you can't bear to wash it. Do you want me to give you some more? Wolf King glanced at Xiao Hong and Lu Hong, and said with a strange smile. While speaking, he didn't forget to stick out a certain part of his lower body. Rogue. Lu Hong's face turned red, and she cursed secretly. However, Xiao Hong and Lu Hong's faces were green and red, and their bodies were trembling. They were so angry that they almost vomited blood. They really wished they could immediately take a knife and castrate the Wolf King's thing. What's wrong with this person? Qin Feiyang looked at Huang San suspiciously, then looked up at Lu Ziyuan and said with a smile, Senior brother Lu, I came uninvited, please forgive me. Lu Ziyuan said lightly, don't play these tricks, just say what your purpose is. Senior brother Lu is indeed a straightforward person. Qin Feiyang smiled, his eyes swept across the alchemy room as he said, I'm in alchemy room number 3. No matter how I think about it, I can't help but feel that something is wrong. What are you trying to say? Lu Ziyuan frowned. Qin Feiyang said, I want to say that I've taken a fancy to your alchemy room. I wonder if senior martial brother Lu can bear to part with it and give it to me? Lu Ziyuan suddenly stood up, a sharp light flashing in his eyes. Qin Feiyang, don't go too far. Do you think that you can do whatever you want in the sacred hall just because you can refine supreme-grade pills? Xiao Hong and the other man roared. He had just snatched their alchemy room, and now he actually came to snatch Lu Ziyuan's alchemy room. He was too arrogant. Too much. Compared to all of you, I'm really a good person. Senior brother Lu, how was it? If you're unwilling, then I can only issue you a challenge before everyone. Qin Feiyang smiled. Lu Ziyuan said in a deep voice, if you really have the guts, then go and challenge Morong Jing. Don't be a tyrant here and bully the weak. Lu Hong couldn't help but burst out laughing. It was clearly these 3 people who came to find trouble with them in the beginning. They were just giving them a taste of their own medicine. Now they were saying that they were bullying the weak? What a joke. Lu Ziyuan and the other 2 looked at Lu Hong with a piercing sharpness in their eyes. Lu Hong waved her hand and smiled. Sorry, I couldn't hold it in. You guys continue. Humph. Lu Ziyuan snorted and looked at Qin Feiyang. If you have the guts to challenge Morong Jing, then I'll really admire you. You want to shift the blame? You're too naive. First, Morong Jing and I have no enmity. Why should I become enemies with her? Besides, women are meant to be protected, not challenged. As a man, you actually said such words. I'm really ashamed of you. Second, I don't need the admiration of a two-faced villain. Previously on the first floor, you were so arrogant. Of course, I have to return the favor. So today, I'm going to take your alchemy room. Qin Feiyang smiled. Crack. Lu Ziyuan clenched his fists, his expression extremely ugly. Too arrogant, too presumptuous. Don't stop me, I'm going to kill him. Xiao Hong was unable to restrain his anger and pounced towards Qin Feiyang. Dong Cheng and Lu Ziyuan really didn't stop him. A strange light flashed in their eyes. If Xiao Hong really killed this person, it would be the best of both worlds. Because Xiao Hong killed this person, it had nothing to do with them. If the upper echelons of the Holy Sanctum investigated, they would only pursue Xiao Hong's responsibility. This way, they could also get rid of Xiao Hong along the way. This way, they would have one less competitor. Qin Feiyang looked at the two of them and suddenly felt enlightened. Although the three of them seemed to have a good relationship on the surface, in reality, they all had evil intentions. Cough, cough. He coughed dryly and looked at Xiao Hong, who was charging over. He smiled meaningfully. Don't be used by some people. Xiao Hong was shocked and stopped immediately. His muddled mind calmed down quickly. At the same time, an imperceptible glint flashed in the depths of his eyes. He was no fool to be able to survive to this day. After being reminded by Qin Feiyang, he instantly saw through Lu Ziyuan and Dong Cheng's intentions. However, he endured it. That was because Lu Ziyuan and Dong Cheng's talent in alchemy was similar to his, and the threat they posed to him was far less than Qin Feiyang. Therefore, the most important thing now was to join forces to get rid of Qin Feiyang. At the same time, Lu Ziyuan and Dong Cheng exchanged glances, feeling as though there was a heavy stone pressing down on their hearts. To be able to see through their schemes with a single glance, this person's insight was even more shocking than they had imagined. This was a formidable opponent. Lu Ziyuan walked to Xiao Hong's side and patted his shoulder, smiling. Forget it. It's just an elixir refinement room. What's the harm in giving it to them? Dongqing nodded. That's right. Sooner or later, the elixir refinement room will return to our hands. Qin Feiyang, have you heard of an old saying? Mountains and rivers take turns. Let's wait and see. Lu Ziyuan's lips curled into a faint smile. He packed his personal belongings and left the elixir refinement room. The good show is yet to come. Before Xiao Hong and Dongqing left, they also looked at Qin Feiyang coldly. The three of them went to elixir refinement room 3. Haha. It feels good to step on such an arrogant person. The Wolf King shook its head, feeling incomparably delighted. The resentment that had been bottled up in its heart had finally been completely vented. Lu Hong covered her mouth and could not help but laugh. Looking at Huang San, she asked, how should we deal with this person? Huang San's heart skipped a beat as he said hurriedly, Junior brother Qin, no, senior brother Qin, I'm innocent. Don't make things difficult for me, all right? His voice was weak, and it was clear that his injuries were not light. Lu Hong asked, then why did they beat you up? Huang San stammered. How could he dare to say it? If he said it out loud, the two people and the wolf would probably beat him up fiercely. Wolf King chuckled. You're not going to say it? I was just worried that I had nothing better to do. Why don't I have some fun with you? Don't. I'll say it. I was the one who told Xiao Hong and the others that you were silly, senior brother Qin. That's why they went to find trouble with you. Huang San said. So, you're the fuse of this entire matter. Lu Hong's face was as cold as ice. Senior sister, I know I was wrong. Please let me go. I promise I won't speak nonsense in the future. Huang San begged weakly. Lu Hong's eyes flashed with killing intent as she sneered. How can it be so easy? I'll kill you right now. At the same time that she finished speaking, her spotlessly white jade fingers grabbed towards Huang San's throat. Qin Feiyang hurriedly grabbed her wrist and said in surprise, "You're really going to kill him?" Lu Hong said, "What's the point of keeping such a person alive? Don't forget the rules of the Divine Temple. If you kill him, you will be implicated. It's not worth it for such a person." Qin Feiyang said, his eyes flashing slightly as he whispered in Lu Hong's ear, "Take out the image crystal and record everything he says." "Is that necessary?" Lu Hong frowned. "Didn't Wolf King say that the Divine Temple forbids private fights?" Lu Ziyuan and the others have violated the rules by torturing Huang San like this. Who knows, maybe this conversation will come in handy in the future. Qin Feiyang laughed softly. "Okay." Lu Hong nodded and took out the image crystal without a trace. Qin Feiyang coughed and looked at Huang San. "Tell me everything you know, how Lu Ziyuan and the others beat you up." Okay, I'll tell you." Huang San nodded his head repeatedly. How could he dare to hide anything? He told them everything in full detail. When Huang San finished, Qin Feiyang turned to look at Lu Hong. Lu Hong nodded. Qin Feiyang smiled and looked down at Huang San. He shook his head and said, "Seeing how pitiful you are, I won't make things difficult for you. Take care of yourself and throw him out." Lu Hong did not say anything else. She picked up Huang San and threw him out before closing the stone door. Elixir Refinement Room 2. Lu Hong, go and clean up the resting room and the cultivation room. I'll try and see how many supreme-grade elixirs I can refine. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed as he walked towards the elixir refinement room. Lu Hong also put away the image crystal and walked into the cultivation room. But at this moment, Qin Feiyang, come out. An angry roar sounded outside the door. Two people and one wolf looked at each other. Why did this voice sound so familiar? Lu Hong said, "It's the law enforcement elder Lu Yun. What is she doing here?" Qin Feiyang frowned, and from his tone he seemed to be a bit angry. He hurriedly walked to the door and opened it. He saw a beautiful woman in white standing outside with an ugly expression. Huang San was still sprawled on the ground, covered in wounds. He did not even have the strength to stand up. Qin Feiyang walked out of the elixir refinement room and cupped his hands. "Greetings, Elder Lu." Lu Hong bowed as well. Lu Yun said in a deep voice, "Let me ask you, why did you do this?" "Elder, what are you referring to?" Qin Feiyang was somewhat baffled. "Are you still playing dumb with me? You really disappoint me. I thought you were a talent, but I never expected you to beat someone to such a state the moment you came to the sacred hall. Do you think that you can do whatever you want in the sacred hall just because you can refine supreme-grade elixirs?" Chapter 313. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He thought that Lu Yun was blaming him for allowing Wolf King to pee on Xiao Hong and Luo Yunyang. It turned out that Lu Yun thought that he was the one who had beaten up Huang San. Qin Feiyang hurriedly explained, "Elder, you've misunderstood. We didn't beat up Huang San. It was Lu Ziyuan and the rest." However, he felt an inexplicable sense of disgust towards this law-enforcing elder. It was ridiculous for him to jump to a conclusion without asking for the reason or right or wrong. "Lu Ziyuan and the rest?" Lu Yun frowned and shouted, "Lu Ziyuan, come out immediately." Clang. The stone door of Alchemy Room 3 opened. Lu Ziyuan and the other two walked out one after another and bowed. "Greetings, Elder Lu." The 6 young men and women with level 9 mental strength also ran out when they heard the news. Lu Yun looked at Lu Ziyuan and the other two and asked, "What happened to Huang San?" "We don't know." Lu Ziyuan and the other two looked at Huang San and shook their heads in confusion. The show is about to begin again. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. Perhaps the words he had just recorded could come in handy now. Lu Yun said, "Then why did Qin Feiyang say that you were the ones who beat up Huang San?" "He's slandering us. Elder, look, we still have the urine of that beast on us. They are relying on the fact that they can refine supreme-grade pills to flaunt their prowess here. They don't take anyone seriously at all. Elder, if you don't believe me, you can ask Huang San." Lu Ziyuan and the other two were filled with righteous indignation and grievance. Lu Yun looked at Lu Ziyuan and the other two, then at Qin Feiyang, Luo Yunyang, and Wolf King. His eyes were filled with anger. How unruly. You people have been spoiled to the heavens. Today, I must get to the bottom of this. If anyone lies, then don't blame this elder for being merciless. Huang San, get up. Lu Yun shouted. Huang San's gaze trembled slightly. If he were to speak the truth, he would definitely offend Lu Ziyuan, and the other two. If he helped Lu Ziyuan and the other two to slander Qin Feiyang, he would offend Qin Feiyang, a top-grade alchemist. He couldn't afford to offend these two groups of people. There was bitterness in his heart. He was just a nobody. Why did they have to put him in the middle and make things difficult for him? In the end, he simply pretended to pass out. As long as he didn't say anything, this matter would have nothing to do with him. Lu Ziyuan and the other two exchanged glances as a trace of ridicule flashed across their eyes. Junior brother Huang San, don't be afraid. With Elder Lu upholding justice, Qin Feiyang won't dare to do anything to you. That's right. Say what you need to say, and let Elder Lu make the decision for you. The three of them walked over and lowered their heads to look at Huang San with a smile. However, Huang San was sprawled on the ground, motionless, as if he had really fainted. Lu Ziyuan squatted on the ground and flipped Huang San over. When he saw the injuries on Huang San's body, his expression changed. He raised his head and glared at the two men and the wolf, shouting, "What feud does he have with you? Why are you so ruthless?" Sigh, how pitiful. Huang San is a fellow disciple after all. What you did is really too much. Xiao Hong and the other two shook their heads and sighed. The two men and the wolf remained silent. However, if one were to observe carefully, they would discover a hint of amusement in their eyes. Go ahead. Go on. The more ferocious the commotion, the angrier Lu Yun would be when the truth came out. When that time came, it wouldn't be as simple as punishment. Lu Yun's brows furrowed deeper as he took out a healing pill and threw it to Lu Ziyuan. Feed him. I want him to say it himself. Yes. Lu Ziyuan caught the healing pill and replied respectfully before stuffing it into Huang San's mouth. What should we do? However, Huang San was burning with anxiety. From the looks of it, he couldn't escape today. He pondered for a moment, then slowly opened his eyes and asked, "Where is this?" Lu Ziyuan smiled. Junior brother Huang San, you're finally awake. Quickly tell Elder Lu how Qin Feiyang and company tortured you. Elder Lu. Huang San was slightly taken aback. He hurriedly got up and knelt respectfully on the ground. He kowtowed. Disciple Huang San greets Elder Lu. Lu Yun said, "Tell me, how did you get these injuries?" This. Huang San looked at Lu Ziyuan and company. A sharp glint flashed across their eyes. Upon seeing this sharp glint, Huang San's heart trembled. He then looked at Qin Feiyang and Wolf King. Lu Hong said, "Let me give you a piece of advice. Don't be used by others again." What are you doing? How dare you threaten him in front of Elder Lu? Aren't you being too bold? Lu Ziyuan and company shouted. The corners of Lu Hong's mouth curled up as she pursed her lips in deep mockery. Lu Ziyuan patted Huang San on the shoulder and said with a smile, "Junior brother Huang San, don't be afraid. We will help you. Just tell us the truth." Huang San steeled his heart and looked at Lu Yun. "Elder Lu, it was Qin Feiyang and company who beat me up. Elder, please uphold justice for me." Lu Ziyuan and company laughed. However, Qin Feiyang and Wolf King also laughed. Only Lu Yun's expression was as cold as frost. She turned to look at Qin Feiyang and said, "What else do you have to say?" Qin Feiyang said with a smile, "Elder Lu, to put it bluntly, some people are really spoiled by you." "How dare you? How dare you speak to Elder Lu like that? Don't you know how to respect your elders?" "Elder Lu, this person is narrow-minded and ruthless. He must be severely punished." Lu Ziyuan and company bowed. Lu Yun's expression sank as she said, "Qin Feiyang, immediately give up alchemy room no. 2 and scram back to the first floor. You are not allowed to come to the 10th floor for a year." Lu Ziyuan and company looked at each other, feeling extremely smug. Arrogant. Continue being arrogant. I already said that alchemy room number 2 will soon return to us. But you still don't believe me? Now it has come true, right? This is the outcome of going against us. Seeing Qin Feiyang's indifference, Lu Yun completely lost her patience and shouted, "Get lost!" Sigh. Qin Feiyang sighed deeply. He didn't have a good impression of this laughable woman. He said indifferently, "Lu Hong, let our elder Lu listen carefully." Lu Ziyuan and company were taken aback. Lu Hong took out an image crystal and infused it with her battle aura. The words she had recorded echoed clearly in the void. How did this happen? Huang San's face went blank. When did they record it? Lu Ziyuan and company's faces instantly turned pale as they slumped to the ground weakly. Why did this happen? Victory was clearly in their grasp. Qin Feiyang was about to be beaten back to his original state and become a street rat. Why did this happen? Heavens, why did you have to tease us? The three of them were dejected. It's over. Lu Yun will definitely fly into a rage. They raised their heads and carefully looked at Lu Yun. Indeed. Lu Yun clenched her fists tightly. Her expression was gloomy as a bone-chilling cold aura emanated from her body. Elder Lu, we were wrong. Elder Lu, please give us a chance to turn over a new leaf. We will definitely be honest in the future. Elder, please give us a way out. The three of them hurriedly admitted their mistakes and asked for leniency. Sigh. Qin Feiyang sighed deeply. If he hadn't been careful today, he would probably be the one begging for mercy. If he wanted to survive in the sacred hall, he had to take every step carefully. Otherwise, he would be smashed to pieces if he wasn't careful. He lowered his head and looked at Huang San. Huang San immediately lowered his head in panic, not daring to meet his gaze. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said, I already told you to behave yourself, but why didn't you listen? Senior brother Qin, I had no choice. Huang San looked up at Lu Yun with a long face and said, Elder Lu, I was forced. If I hadn't slandered senior brother Qin today, Lu Ziyuan and the rest would definitely not have let me off. Elder Lu, please be merciful and spare this disciple this time. Huang San begged bitterly. Sigh. This was the sorrow and helplessness of an insignificant person. Qin Feiyang looked at Lu Yun and shook his head. Do you see that? Are you still going to deny what I said? Elder Lu's expression was gloomy. These people were not just pampered to the heavens. They were practically running amok. From the looks of it, they were about to do whatever they wanted in the Pillfire Hall. All right. Very good. I didn't expect our sacred hall to nurture so many overlords. Do you think you are very powerful? That you are very impressive? Lu Yun lowered his head and asked the trio. The anger in his heart was burning wildly. No. Lu Ziyuan and company hurriedly shook their heads. Scram. Get out of the Pillfire Hall immediately. Kneel in the square outside for a month. Without my permission, anyone who dares to stand up will be expelled from the Sacred Hall, and will never be allowed to take half a step into the Sacred Hall. Lu Yun roared. She was completely enraged. It was a big joke that such a thing happened under her jurisdiction. Elder Lu, please be merciful. We really know our mistakes. Lu Ziyuan and company hurriedly kowtowed and begged for mercy. Their faces were as pale as paper. Lu Yun shouted. If you don't scram, I will have your family members come to the Sacred Hall to collect your corpses. Boom. With that said, the trio felt as if they had been struck by lightning. Their bodies and minds trembled. They hurriedly got up and ran to the first floor as if they were running for their lives. Wolf King stood on the ground and waved his claws. Run slowly. Don't fall. Bang. 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 Lu Ziyuan and company immediately staggered and rolled down the stairs. Their heads were bleeding and they screamed in pain. Wakaka. See, I told you to run slowly but you didn't listen. Look at you now. You've lost all your face. Wolf King laughed in schadenfreude. Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong looked at each other, their eyes full of smiles. One had to know. For the arrogant Lu Ziyuan and company, kneeling in the square outside for a month was more painful than death. It was also obvious that Lu Yun was truly enraged. The one who was most afraid now was Huang San. Lu Yun was silent, as if she was considering how to deal with him. There was dead silence. Moments later, Lu Yun finally looked at Huang San and said, Pack up and leave the Sacred Hall immediately. Ah! Huang San exclaimed. This meant that he had been expelled from the Sacred Hall. Chapter 314. Oh. Lu Hong and Wolf King were stunned. Lu Yan also wore a look of surprise. Clearly, they didn't expect Qin Feiyang to plead for Huang San. As for Huang San, he was dumbfounded. He originally thought that even if Qin Feiyang didn't kill him, he would teach him a lesson. But not only did he not do that, he even spoke up for him. What a good person. Compared to Lu Ziyuan and company, this person was simply a kind angel. Lu Yan pondered for a moment and nodded. All right, since you don't want to pursue the matter, I have nothing else to say. She looked at Huang San and said, You may leave first. Yes. Huang San hurriedly got up from the ground. Qin Feiyang said, Remember this lesson. Don't be used by others in the future. Thank you for your magnanimity, senior brother Qin. Huang San said with tears of gratitude. He then turned around and ran down the stairs without looking back. Lu Yan retracted her gaze and looked at Qin Feiyang with a smile. I didn't expect you to be so magnanimous. I was wrong about you just now. Don't take it to heart. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and said, Elder, you're too kind. May I know why you're looking for me? Let's talk inside. Lu Yan glanced at the disciples who were looking downstairs and turned to walk into the alchemy room. The two humans and Wolf looked at each other and followed in with a trace of suspicion. Even Lu Ziyuan was defeated by Qin Feiyang. This fellow is quite capable. It looks like our Pillfire Hall is going to change in the future. That's right. Lu Ziyuan and company's days of arrogance have finally come to an end. As soon as the stone door to the alchemy room closed, all the disciples began discussing fervently. The 6 young men and women with level 9 psyche power looked at alchemy room number 2 with fear in their eyes. In the beginning, they knew that Huang San was beaten up by Lu Ziyuan and company. But due to the trio's status, they didn't dare interrupt. Similarly, they also wanted to take this opportunity to get rid of Qin Feiyang. But he never imagined that it would be Lu Ziyuan and the other 2 who would be defeated by Qin Feiyang. This person's mind is simply too amazing. He gives me the feeling that all of this is within his control. In the future, unless it is absolutely necessary, we must not provoke him again. A woman in white sighed. The other 5 nodded in agreement. This Qin Feiyang was much harder to deal with than Lu Ziyuan and the other 2. Alchemy room number 2. Lu Yan took out a pill and stared intently at Qin Feiyang. He asked, Did you really refine this longevity extension pill? Qin Feiyang looked at the pill. There was a glaring pill mark on it. He asked doubtfully, Did those 2 deacon elders give it to you? Lu Yan nodded. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Then it was me who refined it. Not bad, not bad. Another genius alchemist has come to our sacred hall. As the saying goes, seeing is believing. Now that he had personally verified it, Lu Yan was overjoyed. But soon after, she frowned again and shook her head. This shouldn't be your full strength. Qin Feiyang's heart skipped a beat. The 2 deacon elders told me, when you refined this longevity extension pill, you didn't use Xiao Hong's 3rd grade cauldron. You also didn't use the Pillfire Hall's Pillfire. This means that you can completely refine medicinal pills of even higher quality. Tell me, why are you hiding it? Lu Yan looked at him curiously. People from the sacred hall are indeed difficult to deal with. Qin Feiyang muttered to himself and said with a smile, To be honest, elder, I just want to keep a low profile. Keep a low profile? Lu Yan was taken aback as a strange look appeared in his eyes. First he snatched Xiao Hong and Dong Cheng's alchemy rooms. Then he snatched Lu Ziyuan's alchemy room and humiliated the 3 of them. How could this be called keeping a low profile? Upon seeing Lu Yan's expression, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but shake his head and laugh. If they didn't provoke me first, I wouldn't have humiliated them. He did plan on keeping a low profile. Even if he wanted to occupy a seat on the 10th floor, he wouldn't challenge Lu Ziyuan and company. They could only blame themselves for being blind. Lu Yan couldn't help but look at him in surprise and smile. Let me see your pinnacle alchemy skills. This, Qin Feiyang hesitated. Lu Yan said, I promise that I won't reveal it to anyone, including the prefecture lord. All right. I'll refine a healing pill. Qin Feiyang nodded. The other party was a law-enforcing elder who had repeatedly pleaded with him. If he rejected him, It would probably arouse his disgust. He strode into the alchemy room and took out the bronze cauldron and a set of herbs for the healing pill. Following that, he activated his alchemy fire and sent his psyche over, fusing it bit by bit. This time, the fusion took a total of 6 hours. At that moment, the sky outside had already darkened. Lu Ziyuan and company knelt side by side in the square. When the disciples passed by them, they couldn't help but whisper. This made them feel even more humiliated. The hatred in his heart towards Qin Feiyang became even more intense. Phew. After the fusion of psyche and alchemy fire, Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and began to refine in an orderly manner. In fact, he was also looking forward to what level of supreme-grade pill he could refine. One had to know. This was spiritual state, not Yin County. In Yin County, he was the only supreme-grade alchemist and everyone had to curry favor with him. However, in spiritual state, there were only 2 known to be supreme-grade alchemists, Lu Xingchen and Morong Jing. If the supreme-grade pill he refined couldn't surpass the 2 of them, the upper echelons of the sacred palace wouldn't put in all their effort to nurture him. In other words, this alchemy was related to his future interests and fate. At the same time, Lu Yun sized up Qin Feiyang, who was refining pills, and nodded in approval. A good alchemist first depended on one's state of mind. No desires and thoughts. No panic and no chaos. No hurry and no impatience. This child had such a state of mind. Whoosh. Dozens of breaths passed. The healing pill was finally out. Like a rainbow, it rushed out of the bronze alchemy furnace. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and held the healing pill firmly in his hand. Seeing this, Lu Yun, Lu Hong, and Wolf King surrounded him with anticipation. Phew! Qin Feiyang let out a long breath and slowly spread his 5 fingers. Rays of resplendent light shot out from the gaps between his fingers. Such a strong light. Lu Yun's gaze trembled. Wolf King urged, "Little Qinzi, can you hurry up? You're so slow. You're really keeping us in suspense." Qin Feiyang glanced at the 2 of them and the wolf and suddenly spread his hands. A healing pill the size of a pellet suddenly appeared in front of his eyes. The light was too dazzling. It was almost impossible to see the pill patterns on the pill. It's 2 pill patterns. Lu Hong exclaimed. Lu Yun's body and mind were also trembling. The light came from the 2 pill patterns. He could actually refine a pill with 2 pill patterns? Unbelievable. His alchemy talent was so terrifying. He was no longer a monster, but a pervert, an inhuman. 2 eye-piercing pill veins madly attacked her line of sight, shaking her soul. As the person involved, Qin Feiyang also couldn't come back to his senses for a long time. Although he had already expected it, the excitement in his heart was indescribable when he saw it with his own eyes. Moreover, it was different from the healing pill refined in the alchemy room on the first floor. The light emitted by the 2 pill patterns on this healing pill was almost the same and extremely bright. If it went one step further, it would probably give birth to a 3rd pill pattern. It seems that I will still be popular in the spiritual state in the future. Qin Feiyang muttered. This was because the medicinal efficacy would increase exponentially with each additional pill vein. Take this healing pill for example. If it was put up for auction, it would definitely cause a frenzy. Qin Feiyang, you are really good. Lu Yun also laughed without caring about her image. Her face, which was still charming, was blooming with happiness. Fortunately, Shiming didn't snatch this kid away. Otherwise, the pill hall would have lost a super monster. She stopped laughing and looked at Qin Feiyang. If you want alchemy room number 1, I will give it to you immediately. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Lu Hong said in a low voice, "This is a good opportunity." Qin Feiyang looked at her and pondered for a while. He shook his head and said, "Forget it, it's troublesome to run around. Thank you for your good intentions, Elder Lu." "You don't want it?" Lu Yun was shocked. Other disciples dreamed of getting alchemy room number 1. Now that it was in front of this kid, he didn't want it. Lu Yun asked, "Are you afraid of offending Morong Jing?" Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "I didn't think so much. It's just that it's better to avoid trouble. Anyway, alchemy room number 2 is enough. He's not arrogant or rash. What a good seedling. Lu Yun muttered to herself and nodded with a smile. Up to you. However, alchemy is important, but so is cultivation. Don't just focus on alchemy and neglect your cultivation. I understand. Qin Feiyang nodded. Alright, that's it. I'll take my leave first. By the way, can you give me this healing pill? Lu Yun asked. Sure. Qin Feiyang handed it over with both hands. Lu Yun played with it for a while and smiled. Take out your image crystal. We will establish a contract bridge. If there are any problems in the future, just send me a message. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded. After establishing the contract bridge, Lu Yun left with the healing pill. Lu Hong went up and closed the stone door. She shook her head and said, This woman is a little realistic. In this place, you can only be respected and valued if you show your value. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and asked Lu Hong, Are you tired now? I'm fine, Lu Hong said. Qin Feiyang said, Then go to the resource hall and help me buy some battle chi pill herbs. Be careful on the way. There shouldn't be any ignorant people who will find trouble with me now, right? Lu Hong covered her mouth and laughed. Then, she opened the stone door and quickly left. Wolf King came in front of Qin Feiyang and said with a fawning smile, Little Qin Zi, when are you going to help me refine the transformation pill and barrier-breaking pill? You're in such a hurry. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at it and walked to the pill furnace. He took out the barrier-breaking pill and transformation pill herbs. This was naturally sorted out by Fatso. Needless to say, with Fatso helping to sort out the herbs, it really saved him a lot of time. Hundreds of breaths passed. The barrier-breaking pill and transformation pill were finally out of the furnace. Wolf King impatiently swallowed them into his stomach. The next moment, its gigantic body glowed brightly like a resplendent full moon, illuminating the entire alchemy room. Qin Feiyang retreated to the side and watched curiously. Suddenly, his pupils shrank. Wolf King's body was shrinking in circles. 4 meters, 3 meters, 2 meters, 1 meter, half a meter. In the end, it was almost the size of a baby's palm. So magical, Qin Feiyang mumbled. Haha, I finally become smaller. Wolf King stood on the ground, looked at himself, and couldn't help but laugh. But then, it stretched out its paw and covered its mouth. Its eyes were full of surprise. Chapter 315. Qin Feiyang laughed. Do you feel like you're dreaming? Wolf King ignored him. It cleared its throat and said tentatively, Lord Wolf, you're so handsome. Qin Feiyang immediately rolled his eyes. This ruffian wolf was getting more and more narcissistic. Waha? You can talk now, and you can also become smaller. From now on, who can stop Brother Wolf from behaving atrociously? Wolf King laughed wildly. Behave atrociously? Qin Feiyang's veins bulged. This bastard, besides behaving atrociously, did he have nothing else in his mind? But then again, the ruffian wolf was now able to freely change the size of his body. It was indeed much more convenient for him to do things like stealing chickens and touching dogs. It seemed that he had to restrain it. Otherwise, it would definitely bring him a lot of trouble before long. This is for you. Qin Feiyang took out an image crystal. It was the image crystal that Lu Hong had bought with 10 million gold coins at the auction house. You even prepared this thing for me? Wolf King was surprised. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and said, Which one of your matters have I not taken to heart? Haha, you're still the best. But where should I put it? I can't always hang a qianquan bag around my neck, right? How unsightly. Wolf King was at a loss. Qin Feiyang's face twitched. It was just a wolf. Could he not be so narcissistic? Finally, after establishing the contract bridge, Qin Feiyang directly tied a qianquan bag around Wolf King's neck without any explanation. However, the rope that tied the qianquan bag could shrink freely. In this way, when Wolf King changed the size of his body, he would not break the rope. So ugly. If I met a beautiful female wolf, wouldn't I be disgusted to death? But forget it, let's go out for a walk first. Hee, it's a dark and windy night and there's no one around. It's a good opportunity to peek at a girl taking a bath. It laughed sinisterly and ran out of the alchemy room in a flash. By the time Qin Feiyang reacted and chased after him, he was long gone. He gnashed his teeth in anger. This bastard, can't he be a little less worrisome? At the center of the sacred palace, which was the junction between the Pill Hall and the Martial Arts Hall, there was a huge palace. It was more than 10 stories tall, and its entire body was as black as ink, emitting a cold aura. This was the resource hall. Although it was already dark, there were still many people going in and out. Outside the resource hall, there was a small plaza. Soon, Lu Hong walked into the plaza and quickly walked towards the resource hall. When the disciples entering and exiting saw her, they all revealed looks of awe. When Lu Hong entered the resource hall, another 2 white-clothed youths walked into the square, but they did not enter the resource hall. They stood in a dark corner and looked at Lu Hong from afar. One of them was fat and the other was thin. The fat youth frowned and said, "Zheng Chuan, are you really going to do this? You must know that Lu Hong is Qin Feiyang's woman." Zheng Chuan was the person who introduced Qin Feiyang and the others to the stone stairs when they first came to the sacred palace. At that time, he was even more determined to eat Lu Hong, this swan meat. Hearing the fat youth's words, Zheng Chuan said in disdain, "Wang Fei, what's with your gaze?" Wang Fei frowned and said, "Anyone with eyes can see that Lu Hong and Qin Feiyang's relationship is not shallow. Yes, their relationship is indeed very good. But from what I observed during the day, they are not a couple. I'm guessing that Lu Hong is merely a maid by Qin Feiyang's side." Zheng Chuan said in disdain, "Since she is a servant girl, why do you still want to touch her? Is there a point?" Wang Fei was puzzled. "Of course there is a point. Let me tell you, during the day when we were at the bottom of the stone stairs, I asked for her name. Do you know how disdainful she was looking at me? It was as if she was looking at a fly. Tonight, this fly of mine is really going to play with her." Zheng Chuan snorted and pursed his lips into a sneer. Wang Fei said worriedly, "But what if Qin Feiyang finds out? At that time, we will be dead." "Don't worry, we won't be found out. Because when I have played with her enough, I will kill her to silence her." Zheng Chuan's eyes flashed with a sinister look. "You are too crazy." Wang Fei raised his eyebrows and could not help but hesitate. "What are you afraid of? When I am tired of playing with her, I will let you play with her too. As for the treasures on her, we will split them equally." Zheng Chuan laughed softly. Wang Fei's eyes lit up and said with a smile, "You said it." "Of course." Zheng Chuan nodded. At this moment, Lu Hong walked out of the resource hall. "Play it by ear." Zheng Chuan whispered to Wang Fei and went up to her with a smile. "Beauty, we are really fated to meet again." Lu Hong looked at him in confusion and frowned. She said indifferently, "Do I know you?" Zheng Chuan's eyes flashed and he sighed. "We met this morning and now you have forgotten about me. Beauty, you are really forgetful." Lu Hong suddenly said, "I remember now. You're that person. May I ask what's the matter?" She was obviously patronizing him. Zheng Chuan became more and more annoyed. He said with a smile, "It's nothing. Wang Fei and I happen to be returning to the Pill Fire Hall. Why don't we go together?" "Whatever." Lu Hong said indifferently and walked towards a dark path. Zheng Chuan gave Wang Fei a look and quickly chased after her. From time to time, he would talk to Lu Hong. Lu Hong was annoyed. "Do it." About 100 breaths later, seeing that only the 3 of them were left on the path, Zheng Chuan gave a low shout. Wang Fei immediately reached out and grabbed Lu Hong's hands. "What are you doing?" Lu Hong flew into a rage and her battle chi surged. But at this moment, Zheng Chuan stuffed a pill into Lu Hong's mouth at lightning speed. Immediately, Lu Hong felt that she could not mobilize her battle chi, and her strength was quickly draining away. She was incomparably shocked and furious as she shouted, "What kind of medicinal pill did you give me?" Zheng Chuan laughed. "Is there a spiritual disaster pill? Once you take it, your cultivation will be completely destroyed." She had heard of it. Lu Hong's face was pale. She said angrily, "Why are you doing this? Aren't you afraid that Qin Feiyang will kill you?" "Haha, of course I am. But he will never know that we are the ones who killed you." But before I kill you, I want to have some fun. I'd like to see how arrogant you can be after I strip you naked. Zheng Chuan laughed lewdly, but before he could finish, a disciple suddenly walked over. His body was rather thin and short. Zheng Chuan cursed in his heart. Damn it, someone actually came at this time. What bad luck. What should we do? Wan Fei was rather nervous. Don't panic. Zheng Chuan shouted in a low voice, lowered his head and looked at Lu Hong. You no longer have any cultivation. If you dare to speak nonsense, I will kill you right now. Lu Hong's eyes flashed slightly as she looked at the person who came. That person was getting closer and closer. But when she saw the person's face clearly, Lu Hong immediately frowned. Because the person who came was none other than Huang San. Could it be that Huang San and these two were also in cahoots? Huang San also noticed them. He hurriedly ran over to Lu Hong and said with a flattering smile, Senior sister, what are you doing here? Lu Hong said calmly, I'm here to help Qin Feiyang buy some medicinal herbs. What are you doing here? I'm also here to buy medicinal herbs for the qi gathering pill. Hey, isn't this Zheng Chuan and Wang Fei? Why are you with senior sister? Huang San was puzzled. Zheng Chuan smiled and said, we just happened to meet in the resource hall, so we are going back to the pill fire hall together. Huang San nodded and looked at Lu Hong with a smile. Senior sister, I won't disturb you anymore. After that, he walked past Lu Hong. Cough cough. But at this moment, Lu Hong bent down and covered her chest with her jade-like hand. She couldn't stop coughing. Senior sister, what's wrong with you? Huang San stopped and looked at her with concern. Zheng Chuan and Wang Fei stared at Huang San, their eyes full of killing intent. Lu Hong's eyes flashed slightly, and she quietly pulled off a jade pendant from her neck. Huang San said, Senior sister, are you feeling unwell? Come on, let me help you up. Thank you. Lu Hong got up and smiled. As she got up, she stuffed the jade pendant into Huang San's hand. Huang San was stunned, and found that Lu Hong's eyes and expression seemed a little strange. And when she said thank you, Lu Hong even gave him a look. Was there a problem? Huang San's heart skipped a beat. He glanced at Zheng Chuan and Wang Fei without a trace, and a bad feeling arose in his heart. Lu Hong was afraid that he would be exposed, so she waved her hand and said, It's none of your business, go do your work. Okay. Huang San nodded, grabbed the jade pendant, and walked toward the resource hall. After Huang San left, Zheng Chuan and Wang Fei immediately took out a dagger, holding Lu Hong as a hostage, and quickly disappeared along a small path. Soon, Huang San returned here again. Strange. Why did she give me this jade pendant? Could it be that she is asking me for help? Whatever, let's go find Qin Feiyang first. After all, it was because of his help that I can continue to stay in the holy hall. He muttered and ran all the way to the pill fire hall. He ran to the door of the number 2 alchemy room, panting, and knocked on the door. Qin Feiyang opened the stone door and saw Huang San. There was a trace of doubt in his eyes. What's the matter? Do you know this? Huang San handed the jade pendant to Qin Feiyang. Fire Phoenix. Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled. He grasped his heart and asked, Who gave it to you? This jade pendant was the keepsake that Qin Feiyang gave to Lu Hong and others. Lu Hong, Fatso, Ling Yunfei, Feng Ling Er, and Lin Yi each had one. Huang San said, Senior sister Lu Hong gave it to me. Damn it. Qin Feiyang cursed in his heart. Lu Hong would never give this jade pendant to Huang San easily. She must have encountered some danger. Because in the past he had told Lu Hong, if she encountered any danger, she could use this jade pendant to ask him for help when she couldn't use the image crystal. Where is she? Show me the way. Qin Feiyang grabbed Huang San, jumped down from the 10th floor, landed at the bottom of the patio, and rushed out of the pill fire hall. I met senior sister Lu Hong when I was on my way to the resource hall. Chapter 316. When Qin Feiyang ran out of the pill fire hall, the 2 middle-aged men guarding the door reached out to stop him. Qin Feiyang, where are you going in such a hurry? Don't tell me you want to find a secluded place to kill Huang San? We all know that Huang San spoke out of turn, but it's all in the past. There's no need to pursue it. Just let him go. When the two saw Qin Feiyang holding Huang San with a murderous look, they thought that he was going to kill Huang San. They couldn't help but try to persuade him. Huang San paused and hurriedly said, "Elders, you've misunderstood. Senior brother Qin doesn't want to kill me." As Huang San spoke, Qin Feiyang scanned the square. He saw Wolf King in the middle of the square, triumphantly playing with the three of them. Wolf King also noticed him and immediately prepared to slip away. "Then what are you doing?" The two middle-aged men didn't understand. "Elders, there's no time to explain," Qin Feiyang hurriedly said, then grabbed Huang San and rushed toward the path leading to the resource hall. At the same time, he shouted at Wolf King, "White-eyed wolf, Lu Hong is in danger. Come with me immediately." "What? Little Hong is in danger? Damn it, who dares bully her? See if I don't cripple him today." When Wolf King heard this, he immediately stopped playing around and angrily chased after Qin Feiyang. "Did you hear that? That woman is in danger. Who has the guts to provoke Qin Feiyang now? Could it be another disciple of our three families? It's possible. But no matter who it is, I'm very happy to see them so anxious. I hope that person can kill that woman. At that time, Qin Feiyang will definitely be in great pain." Lu Ziyuan and the other two looked at the backs of Wolf King and Qin Feiyang. Sneers crept onto their faces. Wolf King caught up with her and asked, "Little Qinzi, what happened?" Qin Feiyang explained briefly. "Zheng Chuan. Wang Fei. Fuck, even if the Heavenly King comes down today, he won't be able to save your worthless lives," Wolf King said coldly, his whole body emitting a fierce aura. "Qin Feiyang, I heard you say that Lu Hong is in danger. What do you mean?" One of the middle-aged men also caught up. Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice, "Elder, don't ask now. I will explain to you when I come back." The middle-aged man's heart trembled. In his impression, Qin Feiyang was a gentle and polite young man. However, at this moment, Qin Feiyang was like a ferocious beast. What was it that made him so angry? He was a little worried and said, "You're too slow. I will take you there." The middle-aged man waved his hand, and in less than 5 breaths, they arrived at the place where Lu Hong was plotted against. "Where are they?" "They are clearly here." Huang San was surprised. "White-eyed wolf, hurry up," Qin Feiyang shouted. Wolf King sniffed hard and nodded. "Her body fragrance is very strong. Little Hong did stay here for a while." Every woman's body had a unique fragrance. Especially virgins, their body fragrance was even more special. Wolf King and Lu Hong had been together for a long time, and had long known each other. Naturally, he could distinguish the body fragrance left by Lu Hong. Qin Feiyang asked, "Where did she go?" "This way, come with me." Wolf King immediately followed the body fragrance and ran towards a small path. "This is simply a dog's nose," Huang San whispered. Wolf King turned his head and glared at him fiercely. If not for Lu Hong being in danger, Huang San's fate would definitely be very miserable. A torrential river meandered through the entire sacred palace. On a certain shore, there was a small forest. Da-da. The hazy moonlight spread down. A series of footsteps suddenly sounded in the small forest in the dark night. It was Zheng Chuan and Wang Fei. They each held a dagger and placed it on Lu Hong's neck, vigilantly scanning the front. Not long later, they came to the side of the river. The rapid river made a splashing sound. With the sound of the river as a cover, even if she screams until her throat breaks, no one will hear. Let's play with her here. Zheng Chuan licked his lips and turned to look at Lu Hong. He chuckled and said, "Little beauty, you didn't expect to fall into my hands so quickly, did you?" Lu Hong said coldly, "I advise you to let me go immediately." "Let you go?" Zheng Chuan was slightly stunned and could not help but laugh. Wang Fei frowned and urged, "Stop talking nonsense, hurry up." "No hurry, no hurry. Look, such a good figure, such a beautiful face, I can't bear to hurt you." Zheng Chuan shook his head and looked at Lu Hong's chest without restraint. Lu Hong's eyes surged with a cold light and said sternly, "I guarantee that you will die a horrible death." Slap. Zheng Chuan reached out and slapped Lu Hong on the left side of her face. A striking palm print immediately appeared. "You still dare to threaten me now?" Okay, I'll strip you naked and let you have a taste of my power. Zheng Chuan's face was ferocious and his body was full of hostility. He reached out and grabbed Lu Hong's clothes. Qin Feiyang, brother wolf, why aren't you here yet? Could it be that I'm really doomed today? Lu Hong muttered to herself, her eyes filled with tears. No matter how strong she was only a weak woman. Seeing that her pure body was about to be tainted by a disgusting man, her heart was about to collapse. Helplessness and despair welled up in her heart. No. Even if I die, I can't be tainted by this beast. All of a sudden, a look of determination flashed in her eyes. She suddenly turned her head and took the initiative to meet the blade. Wang Fei's expression changed, and he hurriedly withdrew the dagger. But even so, on Lu Hong's spotlessly white neck, there was also a glaring wound. Blood spurted out like a fountain. Zheng Chuan was also shocked. Bitch, the more you act like this, the more excited I am. I'd like to see if you're a loyal woman or not. Or are you just a loose woman? With a sinister smile on his face, he opened his hands and pounced on Lu Hong like a wolf. Bastard, you're courting death. At this moment, an angry roar sounded. Brother wolf. Lu Hong's delicate body trembled. Zheng Chuan and Wang Fei were both shocked. How did they find us? Damn it. Damn it. Zheng Chuan roared in exasperation. Zheng Chuan, Wang Fei, do you know what you're doing now? Another angry roar sounded. It's the deacon elder. The two of them trembled both physically and mentally. Zheng Chuan, what do we do now? Wang Fei said anxiously, his face pale. What do we do? Of course we run. Zheng Chuan roared, turned around without hesitation, and jumped into the turbulent river. We're really doomed by this bastard. Wang Fei also jumped into the river with a belly full of regret. After a few breaths, the middle-aged man brought Qin Feiyang, Huang San, and Wolf King and landed in front of Lu Hong. Wolf King said anxiously, Little Hong, are you okay? Tell me, I'll uphold justice for you. Lu Hong looked at Qin Feiyang and Wolf King. The grievances in her heart exploded and the tears in her eyes burst out. She threw herself into Qin Feiyang's arms and cried bitterly. Her thin body trembled. Don't be afraid, it's all in the past. Qin Feiyang patted her shoulder and comforted her in a low voice. However, his face was gloomy. His pitch-black eyes flickered with an extremely shocking cold light. Damned beast! Wolf King roared like thunder. He ran to the river and scanned the surface. Huang San, where does this river lead to? Huang San hurriedly said, Brother Wolf, this river runs through the entire sacred hall. It'll be difficult to find them. Even if it's as difficult as ascending to the heavens, I won't let them go. Wolf King roared. Qin Feiyang, Lu Hong must have suffered a great shock. Let's send her back first. I'll report Zheng Chuan and Wang Fei's evil deeds to Elder Lu later. She'll uphold justice for you, the middle-aged man said. He was also extremely angry that such a thing had happened. Thank you very much, Qin Feiyang said in a low voice. Then he carried Lu Hong and walked towards the Pillfire Palace. Qin Feiyang was not very strong and his shoulders were not very broad. However, in Qin Feiyang's arms, Lu Hong felt unprecedentedly secure. This was reliance. This was a sense of security. Her fearful heart slowly calmed down. Wolf King followed beside her and asked anxiously, Little Hong, did they hurt you? No. But my cultivation, Lu Hong said. At this point, her face was full of pain and she cried bitterly again. Wolf King said, What's wrong with your cultivation? Hurry up and tell me. You're making me anxious. Lu Hong said painfully, Zheng Chuan gave me a spiritual disaster pill when I wasn't paying attention. What? Wolf King, the middle-aged man and Huang Sen all paled. Once a person took a spiritual disaster pill, they would become a cripple no matter how strong they were. Zheng Chuan actually dared to do such a thing. He was simply insane. Bastard, I'll go find them now. If I don't kill them, I swear I'm not a wolf. Wolf King roared and turned to run towards the river. Stop! Qin Feiyang shouted. What? Don't you want to seek justice for Little Hong? Wolf King said angrily. Who said I don't want to? Qin Feiyang roared. That pair of dark eyes had already turned blood red. That was killing intent. Blood like killing intent. The spiritual disaster pill was his lifelong taboo. If it weren't for the spiritual disaster pill, he wouldn't have been reduced to a cripple back then. He didn't even want to hear those words. But he didn't expect that it would happen to Lu Hong again. He absolutely couldn't let these two people go. But now refining the marrow cleansing pill was more important. Moreover, the holy sanctum was so big. Just relying on him and Wolf King to find Zheng Chuan and Little Hong was like looking for a needle in a haystack. It was a waste of time. Huang-san, I'll have to trouble you to take Wolf King to the resource hall later to buy a set of medicinal ingredients for the marrow cleansing pill. You pay the gold coins first, I'll give them to you when we come back. Qin Feiyang said. Okay. Huang-san nodded. The middle-aged man quickly returned to the small path with 3 people and 1 wolf. Huang-san and Wolf King went to the resource hall. Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong quickly returned to the pill fire hall with the middle-aged man's help. After escorting the 2 to the 10th floor, the middle-aged man said, Qin Feiyang, don't worry. I'll go see Elder Lu now. I'll definitely catch Zheng Chuan and Wang Fei as soon as possible. Thank you. Qin Feiyang nodded in thanks. Comfort her well. The middle-aged man glanced at Lu Hong, patted Qin Feiyang's shoulder, and left with a heavy expression. Chapter 317. In the alchemy room. Qin Feiyang lowered his head to look at Lu Hong in his arms. Seeing that she had no intention of getting down, he felt rather helpless. But Lu Hong had just suffered such a huge blow, and he couldn't bear to force her down. So he hugged her and comforted her softly. The middle-aged man also hurried out of the pill fire hall. The other man guarding the door was puzzled. What's going on? Not only did Zheng Chuan and Wang Fei plot against Lu Hong, but they also forced her to take the calamity pill. It's a long story. I'll go find Elder Lu. Watch carefully. With that, the middle-aged man quickly left. How dare they? The burly man guarding the door also flew into a rage. Such beastly behavior was simply smearing the name of the sacred temple. Lu Ziyuan and the other 2 were in the middle of the square, so they also heard this and found it unbelievable. Dongqing asked, Who are Zheng Chuan and Wang Fei? Lu Ziyuan said, They're 2 good-for-nothings. Their families are both in the East City, but they're just small families. Just a small family. How dare they provoke Qin Feiyang? They really don't know their place. Dongcheng and Xiao Hong looked disdainful. They really don't know their place, but it's quite satisfying to cripple that woman. Lu Ziyuan laughed in schadenfreude. That's true. Xiao Hong nodded, then shook his head. No. What's wrong? Lu Ziyuan and Dongcheng didn't understand. Xiao Hong said, Think about it. If Lu Hong was forced to take the calamity pill, what would Qin Feiyang do? Lu Ziyuan said, Of course he would refine the marrow cleansing pill. At this point, Lu Ziyuan's eyes lit up. He chuckled. I understand what you mean. Dongqing said, I understand too. Block Qin Feiyang. Don't let him get the ingredients for the marrow cleansing pill. I remember that the deacon elder in charge of the resource hall seems to be from your Lu family. Hurry up and send a message. While you're at it, contact the patriarch of your Lu family and have him communicate with the chief pavilion master of the treasure pavilion. We'll block him in all aspects. Xiao Hong sneered. Dongqing shook his head and said, I'm afraid it won't work. After all, Qin Feiyang is a top-rank alchemist. The treasure pavilion has probably already received the news. No. It will definitely work. Although Qin Feiyang is a top-grade alchemist, our Lu family also has a real top-grade alchemist, Lu Xingqian. On top of that, our Lu clan's old ancestor is also the city lord of the eastern city. The chief pavilion master will definitely choose to side with our Lu clan. Lu Ziyuan sneered. Dongqing urged, If that's the case, then hurry up and send the message. Lu Ziyuan's eyes flashed. He turned his head to look at the large man guarding the door and groaned. Ouch, elder, this disciple suddenly has a stomachache. Don't talk nonsense. You're already a 7-star battle monarch, and you still have a stomachache? Do you think this elder is stupid? The big man rolled his eyes at him. Disciple is not bullshitting. It's true. Elder, please, Let this disciple go to the toilet. This disciple promises to return immediately. Lu Ziyuan begged, his face flushed red. The big man frowned and waved his hand. Go, go, don't run around. Although the temple was a place for cultivation, it also had a toilet in case of emergency. Thank you, elder. Lu Ziyuan thanked him and hurriedly ran out of the square. At the same time, Wolf King and Huang San rushed into the resource hall. At this moment, there were not many people in the resource hall. There was only a young man in white on duty. He was also a disciple of the temple. Working in the resource hall would give you a certain amount of remuneration. Of course, only those disciples with poor talent and no family background would work here. For people like Qin Feiyang, no matter how much you paid him, he would not be willing to come to this place. Because here he had to be busy every day. For a martial artist and an alchemist, it was purely a waste of time. Huang San ran in front of the young man in white and said, Senior brother, I want a set of medicinal ingredients for the cleansing marrow pill. Quickly prepare it for me. Cleansing marrow pill? The young man in white was stunned and asked doubtfully, What do you want the cleansing marrow pill for? Wolf King shouted, If I tell you to take it, then take it. Why are you talking so much nonsense? The young man in white glanced at Wolf King with a trace of deep fear in his eyes. Wait a moment. After saying that, he ran upstairs to the storeroom. Wait. At this moment, a middle-aged man about 40 years old walked down from upstairs. He was thin, 6 feet tall, with a hooked nose and cold eyes, giving off a dark feeling. The young man in white bowed and said, Greetings, Elder Lu. The middle-aged man nodded and looked up at Wolf King and Huang San. I'm sorry, but there are no medicinal ingredients for the cleansing marrow pill. No. Wolf King was stunned. How is that possible? Huang San also frowned and said, Elder Lu, although the medicinal ingredients for the cleansing marrow pill are precious, the resource hall definitely has them. The young man in white next to the middle-aged man also had a trace of doubt in his eyes. He knew very well that there were medicinal ingredients, but why did Elder Lu say that there were none? What? Elder Lu frowned and said unhappily, Are you suspecting that I'm lying to you? I wouldn't dare. Huang San hurriedly waved his hand and turned to look at Wolf King, asking, What do we do now? Let's go back first. Wolf King looked at Elder Lu and decisively ran out of the resource hall without wasting any more time. Elder Lu, sorry to disturb you. Huang San bowed to the middle-aged man and quickly chased after Wolf King. The young man in white retracted his gaze and turned to the middle-aged man, asking suspiciously, Elder Lu, don't we have medicinal ingredients? The middle-aged man said, Don't ask what you shouldn't ask. Anyway, remember, from now on, no matter who comes to buy the medicinal ingredients for the cleansing marrow pill, we don't have them. I understand. The young man in white nodded and said, What if it's the law enforcement elder or the hall master? The middle-aged man pondered for a while and said, Just say that someone bought them all a few days ago and didn't have time to buy them. Remember, don't talk nonsense. Yes. The young man in white bowed and replied. However, he sighed in his heart. Qin Feiyang, oh Qin Feiyang, why did you provoke the Lu family? Don't you know that the Lu family's power has already infiltrated every corner of the spiritual state? It would be a piece of cake for them to deal with you. What a bastard. He's simply tarnishing the reputation of our holy sanctum. Send someone to find him immediately. If he's dead, I want to see him. If he's alive, I want to see his corpse. At the same time, Lu Yun's angry roar sounded in the law enforcement hall. Yes. The middle-aged man received the order and left. His entire body was filled with a murderous aura. Alchemy Room 2. When the Wolf King returned, he did not knock on the door and directly barged in. Huang San also followed behind him. Ah. Why are you still hugging? The weather isn't cold. Do you need to hug each other for warmth? Seeing that Qin Feiyang was still hugging Lu Hong, Wolf King's eyes widened as he looked at the two of them strangely. Lu Hong blushed and hurriedly jumped down. In fact, she had already calmed down. It was just that it was rare for her to be so close to Qin Feiyang, so she wanted to stay a little longer. Give me the herbs quickly. Qin Feiyang didn't think so much and turned to walk towards the alchemy room. Wolf King shook his head and said, We didn't buy the herbs. Ha. Qin Feiyang stopped in his tracks and turned to look at Wolf King and Huang San in confusion. Wolf King said, the deacon elder in the resource hall said that there are no herbs for the marrow cleansing pill. Huang San added, I can guarantee with my head that there are. Then why didn't he sell it? Wolf King said angrily, Brother Wolf, you still don't know. That elder Lu is called Luan. He's also a member of the Lu family. Huang San smiled bitterly. Wolf King said in surprise, you mean the Lu family is behind this? Most likely. Huang San nodded. Wolf King said, but the news of Xiao Hong being crippled hasn't spread yet. I don't understand. Huang San shook his head. Lu Hong frowned and said, they dare to do whatever they want in the Divine Hall. Is the Lu family really so powerful? Huang San panicked and whispered, Senior sister, you can't underestimate the Lu family. They are far more powerful than you think. So what if they are powerful? Wolf King sneered and looked at Qin Feiyang. Little Qin Zi, this matter can't end like this. They must pay the price. We'll talk about this later. Since we don't have the resources, let's go to the treasure pavilion. Lu Hong, give me the 2 portals. Qin Feiyang said. Lu Hong said, no need to go through so much trouble. Just call Fatso over. He must have them. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said, Fatso's matter is also very important. Don't distract him. Who is Fatso? Huang San muttered. All right. Lu Hong took out the 2 portals and handed them to Qin Feiyang. She bought a total of 5 portals in the treasure pavilion in the morning. She used 2 to go to the Sea of Despair. She used another one when she was surrounded by the Lu family in the East City. Now she couldn't keep the last 2. In other words, 500 million gold coins were gone just like that. Qin Feiyang didn't feel the slightest bit of heartache. He looked at Huang San and said, I have a feeling that this matter has something to do with Lu Ziyuan and the other 2. Go and help me investigate. If you do this, you'll be rewarded. Okay. Huang San was overjoyed at the unexpected good news and immediately ran out. Lu Ziyuan, if it's really you, I'll make sure you die miserably. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed coldly. He waved his hand, opened a portal, and strode in. The next moment, he directly appeared in the reception hall of the treasure pavilion. At this moment, the treasure pavilion had long been closed. There was only one woman in the reception hall. She was burying her head and tidying something. She was Qin Die. Qin Feiyang said, Qin Die. Who? Qin Die was shocked. When she saw that it was Qin Feiyang, she couldn't help but frown and said, How did you get in? Qin Feiyang said, I teleported in. Qin Die glanced at the corridor on both sides and said, You're too bold. Hurry up and get out. If the guards see you, they'll arrest you as a thief. Qin Feiyang said, I'm here to buy ingredients for the marrow cleansing elixir. Qin Die's eyes flashed with an inexplicable light. She shook her head and said, I can't sell it to you. Not selling? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and asked, Why? The treasure pavilion actually refused to do business? What did she mean? Qin Die shook her head and said, I don't know why. It's Steward Yin's order. You'd better leave quickly. Qin Feiyang asked, When was that? Qin Die said, Just before you came. Qin Feiyang immediately understood what was going on. He pursed his lips into a cold smile and didn't stay any longer. He opened the portal and directly returned to the alchemy room. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.